The wolf's breath steamed in the darkness. Kate Hargrove shoved her children behind her, the axe slippery in her grip. 3 months since Andrew died in that mine. 3 months trying to finish this damn cabin alone. Her youngest whimpered. The pack leader's eyes locked on hers yellow-hungry patient. Kate raised the axe knowing it meant nothing. Then a rifle cracked the frozen air. A voice cut through the night. Not while I'm standing. Hit that subscribe button right now and stick with me until the end of this story. Comment what city you're watching from. Let's see how far Kate's fight for survival travels across the world. Kate didn't lower the axe. The stranger sat his horse like he'd been born in the saddle rifle still smoking. The wolves scattered into the tree line, but Kate knew they'd circle back. They always did. Ma'am. His voice was gravel and whiskey. Those wolves give you another hour at best. We'll manage. Kate's voice came out steady. Good. The children were watching. The man swung down from his horse hands, visible rifle pointed at the snow. Even in the dark, she could see the scar running down his face, eye to jaw, the kind of mark a man doesn't get from falling off a horse. No, ma'am, you won't. He nodded toward the cabin. 3 walls standing. The 4th wall, just bare timber and hope snow blowing straight through. That gap's a death sentence. Behind Kate, Thomas grabbed her skirt. 8 years old, trying to be brave. Emma clutched her rag doll so hard the seams were splitting. Baby Sarah hadn't stopped crying since sunset. My husband. Andrew Hargrove. The stranger cut her off. Silver Creek mine collapse. September 12th. Left behind a wife, 3 kids, and half a cabin. He reached into his coat, slow, deliberate. Kate tensed. But he just pulled out a letter yellow and creased like he'd been carrying it a long time. He wrote me the day before he died. Took me 3 months to get here through the mountain passes. I'm sorry for that. Kate stared at the paper. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Who the hell are you? Caleb Thornton. He took 1 step closer. Just 1. And unless you want to watch your children freeze tonight, you're going to let me finish that wall. Mama, I'm cold. Thomas's voice cracked. Kate looked at her son. His lips had that blue tinge she'd been pretending not to see. Emma's whole body shook. Sarah's cries had gone thin and weak. Worse than crying was the quiet. Why would Andrew write to you? Kate's throat burned. He never mentioned, because we served together. Because when I took a bullet at Shiloh, he carried me 3 miles to the field hospital. Because I gave him my word I'd look after his family if anything happened. Caleb tucked the letter back inside his coat. And because he knew what kind of men run this valley. The wolves howled. Closer now. Kate lowered the axe. Not much. Just enough. Timber stacked south side, tools inside. Good. Caleb led his horse toward the lean-to. Get the children by the fire. I'll need light. Kate sat with her children wrapped in every blanket they owned, all 4 threadbare and full of holes. Through the gap in the wall, she watched the stranger work. No wasted motion. Measure cut fit. His breath puffed white in the freezing air, but his hands never fumbled. Like he'd built 100 cabins in 100 winters. Mama, Thomas whispered. Is that the man Papa knew? Kate stroked his hair. It needed cutting. Everything needed something they didn't have. I don't know, baby. He scared the wolves. Yes. Papa used to do that. Thomas's voice dropped. Before. Before. That's how they measured time now. Before the mine. After the mine. Before Andrew. After Andrew. Kate pulled Thomas closer, fighting the tears that lived right behind her eyes these days. 3 months of trying to be strong enough for all of them. 3 months of swinging that axe at timber at wolves at the whole damn territory that wanted to grind them into the frozen ground. Mrs. Hargrove. Caleb's voice came through the gap. Need the lamp closer. Kate stood unwrapping herself from the children. She carried the oil lamp, their only lamp, to the opening. In the gold light, she got her first real look at Caleb Thornton. Weathered. that scar running down his face. But it was his hands that caught her attention. Scarred too, marked by war and work and years of whatever makes a man look like he's stared down death and walked away. "You were a soldier," she said. "Yes, ma'am." "With Andrew." "Among others." Caleb hammered a nail home. The sound echoed. "He was the best man I knew. One of maybe 3 I'd trust with my life." Kate's throat tightened. "He was trying to give us something better. That's why the mine. We were going to finish the cabin, buy cattle, build something." She stopped. Couldn't finish. "I know what he was trying to do." Caleb looked up. His eyes were hard in the lamplight. "And I know it wasn't an accident." The lamp almost slipped from Kate's hands. "What did you say?" "The mine collapse." Caleb went back to hammering. "Wasn't an accident, but we'll talk about that after your children are warm. Right now, hold this beam steady." Kate's mind spun, but she set the lamp down and gripped the timber where Caleb pointed. His hands worked around hers, close but never touching, respectful of the space between stranger and widow. "How do you know?" Her voice barely made it past her lips. "Because I know who owns that mine." Another nail. "And I know what your husband found right before he died." Another nail. "But not tonight, Mrs. Hargrove. Tonight we build walls. Tomorrow we talk about what's buried underneath." Midnight. The 4th wall stood complete. Caleb had chinked every gap, hung canvas over the windows, built up the fire until the cabin actually felt warm. First time since Andrew died that Kate wasn't shivering. The children slept in a pile of blankets by the hearth. Kate sat at the table, rough pine Andrew had built from scrap lumber hands, wrapped around a cup of coffee. Real coffee. Caleb had pulled it from his saddlebags along with bacon, beans, cornbread she hadn't had to cook. "You carry a lot for a drifter," Kate said. Caleb sat across from her. "I'm not a drifter. I'm a man keeping a promise." "What did my husband find?" His eyes flicked up. "You don't waste time." "I've got 3 children sleeping on a dirt floor. Time's something I don't have." Kate leaned forward. "What did Andrew find?" Caleb pulled out the letter again, smoothed it on the table between them. "Andrew and I didn't just serve together. After the war we both came west, worked the same mines, saved money, made plans. He met you, got married, started a family." His voice caught. "I had a daughter. Wife died having her. That girl was everything." Kate's anger cooled a degree. "What happened?" "Fever. 3 years back. She was 5. Caleb stared into his coffee like he could see her face in it. "After that, I couldn't stay put. Kept moving, kept working, kept trying to outrun it. But Andrew wrote regular. Told me about his plans, his family, his hopes. And 6 months ago, he wrote that he'd found something, not gold." Caleb leaned forward. "Water." Kate blinked. "Water. An underground spring feeding the whole valley. Enough water to turn this dust bowl into farmland that could feed 100 families." Caleb's jaw tightened. "You know why the mines here run dry. Why crops fail. Why cattle die every summer. Because there's no water. No, because Ezra Wells owns every water source from here to Bitter Creek. He owns the springs, the wells, everything." Caleb's scarred hand pressed flat on the table. "And he charges whatever he wants. Farmers pay or their crops die. Ranchers pay or their herds die. He's got this whole valley by the throat." Kate's stomach turned cold. "And Andrew found water wells doesn't own. On public land. Can't be bought. Can't be controlled." Caleb pushed the letter toward her. "If people knew about that spring, Wells loses everything. His power, his money, his stranglehold on this territory. Andrew never told me any of this. He was protecting you. Wells has men who make problems disappear." Caleb tapped the letter. "This is dated September 11th. Andrew died September 12th. Mine collapsed in the middle of the day in a shaft that had been reinforced 2 weeks prior in a section where Andrew was working alone. The words hit Kate like fists. You're saying Wells murdered him. I'm saying it's real convenient that the one man who knew about that spring ended up dead before he could tell anyone. Kate's hands shook. Rage and grief crashed together in her chest, hot and cold, at the same time burning and freezing. Why didn't you come sooner? I was in Wyoming when I got word. Winter hit hard. Lost my horse in the mountains, nearly lost myself. Real regret roughened Caleb's voice. I should have been here. I'm sorry. Could you have saved him? Don't know. Maybe. Maybe we'd both be dead. Caleb met her eyes. But you're not alone anymore. I gave Andrew my word. I keep my word. Kate wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. But trust was something she'd buried 3 months ago in frozen ground. What do you want from us? Nothing. I'm here to give, not take. Nobody does something for nothing. I do. Caleb stood, moved to check the fire. Quiet, so he wouldn't wake the children. I've got enough regret and grief to last 2 lifetimes. The one thing that might balance those scales is keeping a promise to a good man who deserved better than he got. Kate watched him bank the fire. He'd built them a wall, brought them food, scared away the wolves. And if what he said about Andrew was true, Mr. Thornton. Ma'am. Where's this spring? Caleb turned. In the firelight, his scarred face looked almost gentle. That's what we need to figure out. Andrew hid the information. Too smart to keep it on him. But he left clues. He pulled a small wooden carving from his pocket, a wolf surprisingly delicate. He used to carve things. Sent them to my daughter in letters. Each one meant something. Kate's breath caught. He carved toys for our children, too. Can I see them? Kate moved to the corner where they kept the children's few things, the wooden horse, the small bird. She brought them back to the table. Caleb turned them in the lamplight, studied them like they were maps. Look. He pointed to the base of the horse. These aren't decorations. They're measurements, coordinates maybe. Kate leaned closer. The marks were tiny. She'd never noticed them. The bird, she asked. Caleb examined it, then smiled. First real smile she'd seen from him. Birds facing northeast. And these marks on the wings, they're not feathers. They're instructions. Turn, pace, dig. He left us a map in children's toys. Smart man, your husband. Who'd think to look? Kate felt tears burn her eyes. Grief and pride and fury all tangled up. He was going to tell me. After the cabin was done. After we were safe. Yes, ma'am, I believe he was. Caleb set the carvings down gentle. But now we have to find what he wanted us to find, before Wells realizes we're looking. How would Wells know? Because I'm here. Wells has eyes everywhere. Caleb moved to the window, peered through the canvas. By now, someone's reported a stranger at your homestead. By tomorrow, Wells knows my name. Once he knows that he knows why I came. Kate's stomach dropped. The children will be safe. I promise you that. Caleb turned and his voice was iron. Wells took Andrew, but he won't touch his family. Not while I'm standing. Those words again. Not while I'm standing. Kate realized she was starting to believe them. Kate woke to the sound of an axe. Pale dawn light filtered through the canvas. For one heartbeat, she forgot. Forgot Andrew was dead. Forgot a stranger was sleeping in her barn. Forgot the wolves in the mine and the spring that might get them all killed. Then Sarah stirred, and reality crashed back. Kate slipped out from under the blankets and moved to the door. Outside, Caleb was splitting firewood, steady rhythmic strikes. He'd already stacked enough to last them 2 weeks. Didn't have to do that, Kate called. Caleb sank the axe into the chopping block. Wasn't doing it for you, doing it for Andrew. I can't pay you. Didn't ask you to. Kate wrapped her shawl tighter. The air bit cold, but not like before. Not with 4 walls standing. I need to understand something. You say you're keeping a promise. But promises don't feed my children. Promises don't keep Wells from taking this land. No, ma'am. Caleb pulled the axe free, selected another log. But they're all I've got. And I've found a man who keeps his promises is worth more than gold. Pretty words. True words. The axe fell, splitting the log clean. Your husband saved my life twice. Once at Shiloh. Once at Chickamauga. I owed him a debt I could never repay. Now he's gone, and all I can do is stand where he would have stood and make sure his children grow up knowing their father was a man worth remembering. Kate's throat tightened. They barely remember him. Thomas does mostly. Emma's starting to forget. And Sarah... She couldn't finish. Caleb set down the axe and walked over, stopped a respectful distance away. Then we make sure they know. We find that spring. We prove what Andrew died protecting. We make sure his name means something more than a grave marker. And if Wells kills us too, he won't. You sound certain. I am. Caleb's hand moved to his gun. I've got nothing left to lose. My wife's gone. My daughter's gone. The only thing I've got left is my word, and I gave it to Andrew. Wells can try to take that, but he'll find I'm harder to kill than he expects. Kate studied this scarred stranger. He could be lying, could be working for Wells, but that grief in his eyes matched her own, bone deep, the kind that doesn't fake. All right, she said. We find the spring. We finish what Andrew started, but my children come first, before the spring, before justice, before anything. Agreed. Caleb extended his hand. Together or not at all? Kate hesitated, then gripped his hand. Calloused, warm, solid. Together, she said. Behind them the door creaked. Thomas stood there in his nightshirt, shivering. Mama, is he staying? Kate looked at her son, then at Caleb. Yes, baby. He's staying. Thomas broke into the first real smile since Andrew died. Good. I was scared the wolves would come back. Caleb knelt to Thomas's level. Wolves are smart, son. They don't come back where they've learned they're not welcome. Because you're standing... That's right. Thomas considered this. Nodded like he understood something important. Papa used to stand too. Before. Caleb's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed steady. Your papa was one of the best men I knew. The kind of man you should grow up to be. Will you teach me? The question hung in the cold air. Kate held her breath. If your mama allows it, Caleb said, I'll teach you everything your papa would have wanted you to know. Thomas looked at Kate with such desperate hope she couldn't have said no if she'd wanted to. Yes, he can teach you. Emma appeared in the doorway dragging her bird. I'm hungry. Caleb stood. Then let's get you fed. Come on. They spent the morning studying the carvings. The marks on the horse suggested distances and directions. The bird indicated a starting point. But without knowing where to begin, the measurements meant nothing. He would have chosen somewhere I'd know, Kate said, turning the wooden horse in her hands. Somewhere significant. Where'd he propose? Caleb asked. By the creek. Cottonwood Grove. But the creek's dried up now that Wells controls the water. Where'd you marry? Bitter Creek. The church. Where'd you meet? Kate smiled despite everything. General store. I was buying fabric. He was buying mining supplies and nearly knocked over an entire display trying to introduce himself. That sounds like Andrew. Caleb's face softened. He wrote about meeting you, said it was like the sun coming out after years of rain. Kate's eyes burned. He wrote that, in every letter, he loved you, fierce Mrs. Hargrove, never had a doubt. Kate had to turn away. The grief was always there right beneath the surface, waiting to drown her. I don't understand how he could risk leaving us, she whispered. If he knew it was dangerous, he didn't think he'd die. Nobody does. Caleb's voice went rough with old pain. We all think we've got more time. Think we can fix everything before it's too late. Time runs out faster than we expect. Kate turned back. Is that what happened with your daughter? Caleb's face went blank. Careful. I was working a claim 3 days away. By the time I got word she was sick by the time I rode back. He stopped. His scarred hands clenched. She died calling for me. I wasn't there. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't change it. All we can do is stand in the present and try not to fail the people who are still here. Heavy silence settled between them. Two people bound by grief and determination. Then Emma wandered over, clutching her bird. Mama, why's the bird always looking that way? Kate started to answer, then stopped. What do you mean, sweetie? Emma held up the carving. Papa said the bird's always looking for home. Home is always northeast, so the bird looks northeast. Kate and Caleb locked eyes. Northeast? From where? Kate breathed. Emma shrugged. Papa said from wherever you are. The bird always knows. Caleb stood fast. Mrs. Hargrove, where's Andrew buried? Bitter Creek Cemetery. But... Kate's breath caught. Home. He always called this cabin home, even before it was finished. Northeast from here. Caleb moved to the door, checking the sun. Emma, your papa was very smart. Emma beamed. I know. They bundled the children in everything warm and set out on foot. The snow crunched under their boots. Kate's heart hammered. If they were right, if Andrew had hidden the evidence somewhere northeast of the cabin? Thomas walked beside Caleb, chattering about everything and nothing. First time Kate had heard her son talk this much since Andrew died. Emma sang a song Andrew used to hum while he worked something about a valley and a river and coming home. Sarah rode on Kate's hip, finally quiet, finally warm. There. Caleb pointed ahead. Kate squinted through the snow glare. At first, nothing. Then she saw at a small cairn of stones Andrew had built when they first claimed the land. He'd said it marked their beginning, their fresh start. He marked it for me, Kate whispered. They reached the cairn. Caleb knelt and started removing stones. Thomas helped small hands working alongside scarred ones. Beneath the third layer, wrapped in oilcloth, was a wooden box. Kate's hands shook as she opened it. Inside, a folded map covered in Andrew's careful handwriting and a letter addressed to her. My dearest Kate, she read aloud, her voice breaking with every word. If you're reading this, I've failed to keep you safe myself. But I've left you something more valuable than gold, the truth and the power to protect our family's future. The spring is real. The coordinates are on this map. Ezra Wells cannot own what belongs to everyone. Fight for it, love. Fight for our children. And if Caleb Thornton comes looking, trust him with your life. He's one of the few truly good men I've ever known. I love you always, even beyond death. Andrew. Kate clutched the letter to her chest. Tears streamed down her face, hot against the cold air. Mama. Thomas's voice was small. What did Papa leave? Kate wiped her eyes and knelt in the snow, gathering all three children close. He left us a gift. The most important gift, a chance at a better future, and the tools to fight for it. She looked up at Caleb. He stood silhouetted against the winter sky, one hand on his gun, watching the horizon. Always watching. Mr. Thornton. Ma'am. Thank you. For keeping your promise. Caleb's scarred face softened. We're not done yet. The hard part's just beginning. Kate stood. She tucked the map and letter inside her coat, against her heart, where Andrew's words could keep her warm. For the first time since they lowered him into frozen ground, she felt something besides grief. She felt ready. Then let's finish what he started, she said. Her voice came out steady and strong. Not while we're standing. Right. Caleb smiled, a real smile this time. That's right, ma'am. Not while we're standing. They walked back toward the cabin, the children running ahead laughing for the first time in months. Kate and Caleb followed slower. The map felt heavy against her ribs, heavy with promise and danger both. Wells will come, Kate said. Not a question. Yes, ma'am. Soon as he hears I'm here. How long do we have? Day, maybe two. Caleb's hand rested on his gun, natural like it belonged there. We need to get that map to someone Wells can't reach. The federal marshal in Helena, maybe. Someone with power. That's 3 days' ride in good weather. I know. And Wells has men everywhere between here and there. I know that too. Kate stopped walking. Ahead, Thomas was showing Emma how to make snow angels. Sarah clapped her mittened hands, delighted. I won't run, Kate said. This is our land. Andrew died for it. I won't let Wells take it without a fight. Wasn't suggesting you run. Caleb turned to face her. But I need you to understand what we're up against. Wells has money, has guns, has the law in his pocket. We've got a map and a promise from a dead man. We've got more than that. Kate's voice was steel. We've got the truth, and we've got each other. Caleb studied her. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. Yes, ma'am, he said quietly. I suppose we do. A sound, faint, horse hooves on frozen ground. Caleb's hand moved to his gun faster than Kate could blink. Get the children, now! Kate didn't question. She ran, scooping up Sarah, grabbing Thomas and Emma. Inside, quick! They made it to the cabin. Caleb was right behind them, rifle in hand. He positioned himself by the window, peering through the canvas. How many? Kate asked. Her voice didn't shake. Good. 2 riders. Could be nothing. But you don't think so? No, ma'am, I don't. The riders came into view. 2 men on dark horses dressed too well for ranch hands. They stopped 50 yards from the cabin. Just sat there, watching. After a long minute, they turned and rode away. Caleb didn't lower his rifle until they disappeared over the ridge. Wells knows, Kate said. Yes, ma'am, he knows. Thomas pressed against Kate's side. Mama, who were those men? Kate stroked his hair, kept her voice calm. Just travelers, passing through, baby. But Thomas was 8, and he wasn't stupid. He looked up at Caleb. Are they coming back? Caleb met the boy's eyes. Didn't lie. Probably. Will you stop them? Yes, son, I will. Thomas nodded, satisfied. Like that promise was enough. Kate wished she had a child's faith. That night, after the children finally slept, Kate and Caleb sat by the fire. The map lay between them on the table, Andrew's careful handwriting marking distances, landmarks, coordinates. The spring's about 3 miles north, Caleb said, tracing a line on the map. Hidden in a box canyon. Andrew marked it clear. If we can verify it exists, if we can prove it's on public land. Wells loses everything, Kate finished. Not everything, but enough. Caleb looked up. Enough that he'll kill to protect what he's got. He already killed Andrew. Yes, ma'am. And he'll try to kill us too if we let him. Kate stared into the fire. Flames danced, throwing shadows on the walls Caleb had built. I'm scared, she admitted. First time she'd said it out loud. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. I'm scared for my children. I know. Caleb's voice was gentle. But sometimes the most dangerous thing is doing nothing. Wells won't stop with the spring. Men like him never do. He'll keep taking until someone stands against him. And you think we can? I think we have to try. Kate looked at this scarred stranger who'd ridden into her life 3 days ago. Already he felt less like a stranger. More like... She didn't let herself finish that thought. What do we do? She asked. Tomorrow we ride out to the spring. Verify it's there. Then we take this map to Helena to Marshal Hayes. He's honest from what I hear. Can't be bought. That's 3 days through country Wells controls. I know. With 3 children. We leave them with someone you trust. Reverend Foster, maybe. Or... No. Kate's voice was flat. I don't leave my children. Not after... She stopped. Couldn't say it. Caleb nodded. Then we take them. It'll be harder, but we'll manage. You keep saying we. Yes, ma'am. Why? You could take the map yourself. Ride faster without us. Be safer. Caleb was quiet for a long moment. The fire crackled. Outside wind moaned through the eaves. "After my daughter died," he said finally, "I thought I was done. Thought there was nothing left worth standing for. Then Andrew's letter found me, and I realized maybe I've got one more fight left. One more promise to keep. One more chance to do something that matters." He looked at Kate. His scarred face was honest in the firelight. "You and your children. Mrs. Hargrove, you're what matters now. You're what's worth standing for." Kate's throat closed up. She couldn't speak for a moment. When she finally could, her voice came out rough. "Call me Kate. If we're in this together, call me Kate." Caleb smiled, small but real. "Kate." "And Caleb, thank you. For everything. Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow the real fight starts." Kate looked at her children sleeping by the fire. Thomas with his wooden horse clutched tight. Emma with her bird. Sarah curled between them, finally peaceful. Andrew had died trying to give them a better future. Now it was up to her to finish what he started. She turned back to Caleb. "Then let's make sure we win." Dawn came cold and clear. Kate woke to find Caleb already outside checking the horses. She'd heard him moving around since before first light, the quiet sounds of a man who'd learned to survive by never sleeping too deep. She pulled on her boots, wrapped her shawl tight, and stepped out into air that bit like teeth. "We leave in an hour," Caleb said without turning around. He was checking the saddle on his horse, testing every strap. "I want to reach the spring and be back before dark. The children, come with us. Safer than leaving them here alone." Caleb finally looked at her. "Wells knows I'm here now. Those riders yesterday weren't just curious. They were counting. Seeing how many of us there are, what kind of fight we might put up." Kate's stomach tightened. "You think they'll come today?" "Not yet. Wells is careful. He'll want to know exactly what we know before he makes a move." Caleb moved to the second horse, older, tired-looking, but steady. "This mare belonged to a widow over in Copper Ridge. She gave her to me when I helped fix her roof. The horse is slow, but she's gentle. Good for carrying children. You've been planning this since the moment I read Andrew's letter." Caleb met her eyes. "I knew what I was riding into, Kate. Knew Wells would be waiting. A man doesn't survive as long as I have without learning to plan 3 moves ahead." Kate wrapped her arms around herself. The morning sun was just starting to touch the peaks, turning the snow gold. Beautiful. This territory was beautiful in a way that could kill you if you forgot to respect it. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Ask." "If it comes down to a choice between finishing this and keeping my children safe, which one do you choose?" Caleb didn't hesitate. "Your children. Every time. Even if it means Wells wins. Even then." He cinched the saddle tight. "Andrew didn't die so his children could end up orphans. We'll find another way if we have to, but we don't sacrifice them on the altar of justice." Relief flooded through Kate so fast it almost brought her to her knees. She'd needed to hear that. Needed to know that for all of Caleb's talk about promises and standing against Wells, he understood what mattered most. "All right," she said. "I'll get the children ready." Inside the cabin, Thomas was already awake, sitting by the banked fire with his wooden horse. He looked up when Kate entered, his face serious, in a way no 8-year-old should have to be. "Are we going somewhere, Mama?" Kate knelt beside him. "Yes, baby. We're going to find something Papa hid. Something important." "The spring, smart boy. Too smart, maybe. You heard us talking." "I hear everything." Thomas looked down at the horse in his hands. "Papa used to say that too. Said I had ears like a fox." Kate's throat tightened. He was right. Is it dangerous? What we're doing? She could lie. Tell him everything would be fine, that there was nothing to worry about. But Thomas had already lost his father to a lie wrapped up as an accident. He deserved better. "It might be," she said. "But Mr. Thornton will keep us safe, and I will too." We're going to be careful and smart, just like Papa taught us. Thomas nodded slowly. Then he looked up at her with Andrew's eyes. Are we gonna fight the bad men? If we have to. Good. Thomas stood squaring his small shoulders. Papa would want us to fight. Kate pulled him close, breathing in the little boy smell of him. Sweat and sleep and innocence that was slipping away too fast. Yes, baby, he would. Emma woke next, groggy and confused. Sarah just cried until Kate nursed her, and even then she fussed like she could feel the tension in the air. They ate a quick breakfast cornmeal mush with a little molasses Caleb had produced from his seemingly endless saddlebags. Then they bundled up and headed out. The ride north was slow. The mare Caleb had brought was patient with the children, letting Thomas sit tall in front while Emma clung to his waist. Kate rode behind Caleb on his horse, Sarah strapped to her chest in a sling Andrew had made from flour sacks. The territory spread out around them, endless white, broken by dark stands of pine, the mountains rising in the distance like the spine of some ancient beast. Kate had loved this land once, had come west with Andrew full of dreams about building something lasting. Now she just wanted to survive it. How'd you meet Andrew? Kate asked after they'd been riding an hour. You said you served together, but you never said how. Caleb was quiet for a moment. Then, Shiloh, April 1862. I was 19, green as grass. Thought war was going to be glory and purpose. Turned out it was mostly mud and terror. I don't want to bring up bad memories. They're always there anyway. Caleb's voice was matter-of-fact. Might as well put them to use. Andrew and I ended up in the same regiment. He was a year older, but he seemed ancient to me. Had this calm about him like nothing could shake him. When the shooting started and half our unit panicked, Andrew just kept moving forward, said the only way through was through. Kate smiled despite everything. That sounds like him. He saved my life that first day. I took a bullet in the shoulder, went down in an open field. Andrew came back for me, carried me 3 miles to the field hospital with Confederates shooting at us the whole way. Caleb shifted in the saddle. I asked him later why he did it. Know what he said? What? Said he'd made a promise to himself that he wouldn't leave anyone behind, not if he could help it. Said every man deserved a chance to make it home. Caleb's voice roughened. That's who Andrew was, a man who kept his promises. Kate had to look away, blinking hard. He wrote me letters from the war, never told me about saving anyone. Just talked about wanting to come home, about the life we'd build together. That was Andrew. Never wanted to be a hero. Just wanted to be a good man. They rode in silence for a while. Then Emma's voice piped up from the other horse. Mr. Thornton, do you miss your little girl? Kate started to scold her. You don't ask questions like that, but Caleb answered before she could. Every day, he said simply. Every single day. What was her name? Grace. That's pretty. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, Papa's in heaven now. Maybe he's taking care of Grace until you get there. Caleb's shoulders went rigid. For a long moment, he didn't respond. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick. That's a kind thought, little one. Thank you. Kate met his eyes over her shoulder, saw the grief there raw and fresh as the day it happened. She understood that grief, lived with it every waking moment. We're close, Caleb said, changing the subject. He pointed ahead to where the land started to rise, forming a box canyon with steep walls. According to Andrew's map, the spring is in there. They dismounted at the canyon mouth. Caleb lifted Emma and Thomas down, while Kate adjusted Sarah in her sling. The baby had finally fallen asleep, her small warm weight against Kate's chest. Stay close, Caleb said to the children. Don't wander off. There are drop-offs in these canyons that'll kill you before you know what happened. Thomas took Emma's hand. I'll watch her. Good man. Caleb pulled his rifle from the saddle scabbard. Kate, you carrying? She nodded toward the ancient pistol tucked in her belt. Andrew's gun. She'd only fired it a handful of times, but she knew which end was which. All right then. Caleb started into the canyon. Let's see what Andrew died protecting. The canyon walls rose around them, blocking out the sun. Snow lay thick here, untouched, perfect. Their boots crunched loud in the silence. Kate's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. The place Andrew had found. The secret worth killing for. They walked for maybe 15 minutes following the canyon as it twisted deeper into the mountain. Then Caleb stopped. Listen. Kate heard it, the sound of running water. Impossible in the dead of winter, but there it was. Clear and bright and real. They rounded a bend, and Kate's breath caught. The spring. It bubbled up from a crack in the rock face, crystal clear, steaming slightly in the cold air. It ran down into a pool, then trickled away through a channel in the stone. Not a lot of water, not a dramatic waterfall, just a steady, reliable flow. Life in liquid form. "My God," Kate whispered. "It's real." "Yes, ma'am." Caleb knelt by the pool, dipped his hand in, tasted it. Pure, cold, perfect. He stood looking around the canyon. And judging by the vegetation down there, this stream feeds into the valley, probably runs underground for miles before it surfaces again. This is what Wells is afraid of. This is what Wells built his empire on controlling. If people knew water this clean was flowing free, they'd never pay his prices again. Caleb pulled out Andrew's map, comparing it to the canyon around them. We're on public land, territory land. Can't be owned, can't be bought. All we have to do is prove it exists and file the claim properly. Kate stared at the spring. Andrew had stood here, had discovered this, had known what it meant for their family, for the whole valley, and it had killed him. "Mama, look." Thomas had found something near the pool. He held up a small wooden carving, another wolf just like the one Caleb carried. Kate's hands shook as she took it. On the base, Andrew had carved a message. "For my son, be brave. Stand tall. Papa." She looked at Caleb. He knew he might not make it back. Probably. Caleb's jaw was tight. But he came anyway. Because some things are worth the risk. Emma tugged on Kate's skirt. "Mama, I'm cold." Reality crashed back. They were standing in a box canyon in the middle of winter with 3 small children and a secret that had already gotten one man killed. They needed to move. "All right," Kate said. "We've seen it. We know it's real. Now what?" "Now we ride to Helena. Show this map to Marshal Hayes. Let the law handle Wells." Caleb started back toward the horses. "We can make it in 3 days if we push hard. And if Wells tries to stop us, then we push harder." They were halfway back to the horses when Kate heard it, the sound of more hoofbeats, multiple riders moving fast. Caleb heard it too. His hand went to his rifle. "Get the children, now!" Kate didn't argue. She grabbed Thomas and Emma, pulling them close. Sarah woke and started crying. The sound echoed off the canyon walls loud as a gunshot. 6 riders appeared at the canyon mouth. 6 men on dark horses, all armed. They spread out, blocking the exit. The man in the middle was older, well-dressed, riding a black gelding that probably cost more than Kate's cabin. He had the look of someone who'd never done a day of real work in his life. Soft hands, expensive coat. The kind of confidence that came from always getting what he wanted. "Ezra Wells," Caleb said quietly. "Stay behind me." Wells smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Thornton, I've been hearing about you. War hero, Medal of Honor, the man who saved half his regiment at Chickamauga." His voice was smooth, educated. "I'm honored." "Can't say the same." Caleb's rifle was still pointed at the ground, but his finger was on the trigger. "You're blocking our path." "Am I?" Wells looked around the canyon like he was noticing it for the first time. "Funny thing about this canyon. It's on my land. Has been for 5 years. I've got the deed right here in my pocket." "That's a lie," Kate said, before she could stop herself. "This is public land, territory land." Wells's eyes moved to her. Cold eyes. Calculating. Mrs. Hargrove, I was sorry to hear about your husband. Such a terrible accident. It wasn't an accident. No. Wells tilted his head. What was it then? Murder. The word came out hard. You killed him because he found this spring, because he knew you'd been lying about the water for years. Wells's smile widened. That's quite an accusation. Do you have any proof? Kate's hand moved toward the map tucked inside her coat, but Caleb caught her wrist. Don't, his eyes said. Not yet. We don't need proof, Caleb said. We've got the truth, and the truth has a way of coming out. Does it? Wells gestured to his men. I've got 6 witnesses here who'll swear they saw you trespassing on my land, threatening me, maybe even trying to rob me. His voice went cold. Accidents happen out here, Mr. Thornton. Just ask Andrew Hargrove. Thomas made a small sound. Kate pulled him closer, her heart racing. You threatening a woman and 3 children? Caleb's voice was deadly quiet. That the kind of man you are? I'm the kind of man who protects what's his. Wells leaned forward in his saddle. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me whatever Andrew left behind. Maps, letters, whatever proof you think you have. Then you're going to ride out of this territory and never come back. Do that, and Mrs. Hargrove and her children get to keep their cabin. They get to live. And if we don't, Wells shrugged. Then I've got 6 men here who are very good at making problems disappear. Your choice, Mr. Thornton. Be smart. Kate's mind raced. 6 armed men, 1 rifle, 1 old pistol, 3 children who couldn't run fast enough if shooting started. They were trapped. But Caleb didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there like he'd grown roots rifle ready, eyes locked on Wells. Here's my counteroffer, Caleb said. You turn around and ride back to whatever hole you crawled out of. You leave Mrs. Hargrove and her family alone. You stop pretending you own water that belongs to everyone. Do that, and maybe you don't end up in a federal prison. Wells laughed. Actually laughed. You've got spirit. I'll give you that. But spirit doesn't stop bullets. No, Caleb agreed. But the law does. And the law's coming for you, Wells. Might be today, might be tomorrow. But it's coming. Is it? Wells gestured again. His men started to dismount. We'll see about that. Everything happened fast. Caleb's rifle came up. Don't. The men froze. You shoot me, Wells said calmly. And my men kill you and everyone behind you. Is that what you want? Those children dead in the snow? Kate's breath stopped. Sarah cried against her chest. Thomas pressed so close she could feel him shaking. No, Caleb said. That's not what I want. But I've got this rifle pointed at your head, Wells. Your men make a move, you die first. You willing to bet your life they can draw faster than I can pull this trigger? Silence stretched out. Tense. Dangerous. Kate's hand found the pistol at her belt. Then Wells smiled. You're bluffing. Try me. More silence. Kate could hear her own heartbeat loud as thunder. Finally, Wells raised a hand. His men stopped moving. Smart man. But this isn't over, Thornton. Not by a long shot. He turned his horse. You've got until sundown tomorrow to get out of this territory. After that, he looked at Kate. Well, accidents happen. The riders left. 6 men disappearing back through the canyon mouth like ghosts. Kate's legs gave out. She sat down hard in the snow, clutching her children. Mama. Thomas's voice was tiny. Are the bad men gone? For now, baby. Kate looked up at Caleb. He was still standing, rifle still ready, watching the canyon mouth. Caleb. We need to move. He lowered the rifle. Now, before he changes his mind and comes back with more men. Where do we go? Helena, like we planned. Caleb started toward the horses. But we ride hard, and we don't stop. Not for anything. Kate stood her legs unsteady. He'll follow us. Yes, ma'am, he will. And if he catches us? Caleb met her eyes. Then we make him regret it. They rode out of the canyon fast, pushing the horses as hard as they dared with children aboard. Kate kept looking back, expecting to see Wells and his men behind them, but the trail stayed empty. That was almost worse. By the time they reached the cabin, the sun was setting. Caleb dismounted immediately, checking their surroundings. "Pack light," he said. "Food, blankets, ammunition. Anything else stays behind." "What about the cabin?" "Our things." "Things can be replaced." "You can't." Caleb was already inside gathering supplies. "We leave in 10 minutes. Kate moved fast, her hands shaking. She packed cornmeal beans, the last of the dried meat. Extra clothes for the children. Andrew's letters, she couldn't leave those. The map stayed tucked inside her coat against her heart. Thomas helped, his small face set with determination. Emma clung to her bird. Sarah cried, confused and tired. "Mama, what about my horse?" Thomas held up the wooden carving. "Bring it, baby. Bring everything Papa made you." They were loading the last supplies on the horses when Kate heard it, hoofbeats again. Close. Too close. Caleb heard it too. Inside. Now. They barely made it through the door before the riders appeared. Not Wells this time, just 2 of his men, the same ones who'd watched the cabin yesterday. They sat their horses in the yard, backlit by the setting sun. One of them called out, "Mrs. Hargrove, Mr. Wells wants to talk." Caleb positioned himself at the window. "She's got nothing to say." "That's a shame." The rider's voice was casual. "Because Mr. Wells is a reasonable man. He's willing to pay for that map. Good money, enough to set you up somewhere nice, somewhere far from here." "Not interested," Caleb called back. "You should think about those children, Mr. Thornton. Think about what kind of life they'll have if you make the wrong choice here." Kate's hands clenched. They were using her children as leverage, using her babies to force her hand. "Tell Wells," Caleb said, his voice carrying across the yard, "that the only thing I'm thinking about is how he murdered a good man. Tell him justice is coming. And tell him I'm the one bringing it." The riders sat for another moment. Then one of them leaned over and struck a match. He dropped it into the woodpile beside the lean-to. "Reasonable offer expires at dawn," he called. "After that, Wells stops asking nice." They rode off. The woodpile caught flames, licking up into the twilight. Caleb ran out and managed to scatter the wood before the fire spread to the cabin. But the message was clear. Wells could burn them out any time he wanted. "We leave now," Caleb said, stomping out the last embers. "Right now. Ride through the night. The children can't. They'll have to." His voice was hard. "Wells is done playing. He'll come at dawn with enough men to finish this. We need to be gone before then." Kate looked at her children. Thomas trying to be brave. Emma clutching her doll. Sarah crying in her arms. They were exhausted. Cold. Scared. But Caleb was right. Staying meant dying. "All right," she said. "Let's go." They rode out into the darkness, leaving the cabin behind. Kate didn't look back. Couldn't. That cabin was Andrew's dream, their future, everything they'd worked for. But staying alive mattered more. They rode through the night, stopping only to let the horses rest and to nurse Sarah. The children dozed in the saddle, exhausted beyond fear. Kate held Sarah close, feeling her small, warm weight, praying they'd made the right choice. Caleb rode ahead, alert, watching for signs of pursuit. Every sound made Kate's heart jump. Every shadow could be Wells' men. But the night stayed quiet. Too quiet, maybe. By dawn, they'd covered maybe 20 miles. Not enough. Not nearly enough. "We need to rest," Kate said. "The children need to eat." Caleb looked back at them. His face was drawn, exhausted. He hadn't slept in 2 days. 1 hour. Then we keep moving. They stopped in a stand of pine where they could see anyone coming. Caleb built a small fire, just enough to warm some food. Kate fed the children, trying to keep things normal, trying not to let them see how scared she was. "Tell me about Helena," she said to Caleb, needing to hear something hopeful. "Tell me what happens when we get there." "We find Marshal Hayes. Give him the map. He'll send federal marshals to verify the spring to check Wells' land claims. Once they find out Wells has been defrauding the territory, they'll arrest him. He'll face trial. Caleb poured coffee, his hands steady despite everything. It'll take time, but justice will come. You sound certain. I have to be. He looked at her across the fire. Because if I'm not certain, what's the point of any of this? Kate understood that. Understood the need to believe things could get better, even when everything said otherwise. After this is over, she said quietly, what will you do? Caleb was quiet for a long time. Then, I don't know. Haven't thought past keeping you and your children alive. You could stay, at the cabin, help us rebuild. He looked up, surprise in his eyes. You'd want that? Yes. Kate realized she meant it. The children need someone. Thomas needs a man to teach him. Emma adores you. And I... She stopped, not sure what she was about to say. You what? I trust you. That's not something I give easily anymore. Caleb's scarred face softened. It'd be an honor, Kate, if we make it through this. When we make it through this. When, he agreed. They sat in comfortable silence drinking coffee, watching the children play in the snow. For a moment it almost felt normal, almost felt like they were just a family stopping for a rest on a journey. Then Thomas shouted, "Riders, riders, coming!" Kate's heart stopped. She turned and saw them, a dozen men on horses coming fast across the valley floor. Wells had found them. Move! Caleb kicked out the fire, already running for the horses. Kate, get the children mounted, now! Kate grabbed Emma and Sarah, practically throwing them onto the mare. Thomas scrambled up behind them. Caleb swung into his saddle rifle in hand. Can we outrun them? Kate asked, mounting behind Sarah. No. Caleb's voice was grim. They're too close. We have to find cover. He spurred his horse forward, Kate following. The riders behind them gave a shout. They'd been spotted. Caleb led them deeper into the pines, weaving between trees, the horses struggling through deep snow. Behind them, the shouts grew louder. There! Caleb pointed ahead to where the land rose steeply, forming a rocky outcrop. We can defend that position. They reached the rocks and dismounted fast. Caleb positioned Kate and the children behind a boulder, then took a position with a clear view of their back trail. Stay down, he ordered. No matter what happens, you stay down. The riders burst into the clearing below. A dozen men, all armed, all looking up at the rocks where Kate and her family were trapped. Wells rode at their head, his face cold with fury. End of the line, Thornton, he called. Give me that map, and I'll let the woman and children ride out. Your word's worthless, Caleb called back. Maybe, but it's the only offer you're getting. Wells gestured to his men. They started to spread out surrounding the rocks. You can't win this. You've got one rifle and one old pistol. I've got 12 men. Do the math. Kate's hands shook. She pulled her children close, Sarah crying against her chest, Thomas and Emma silent with fear. Caleb's voice was steady. I've got high ground and plenty of ammunition. Your men come up here, some of them die. Maybe all of them. At a price you're willing to pay. Wells considered this. Then he smiled. You're right. So here's what we'll do instead. He pulled out a pistol and aimed it at the trees below the rocks. I'll just start a fire, smoke you out, or burn you alive. Your choice. Kate's breath stopped. He'd do it. She could see it in his eyes. Wells would burn them out and claim it was an accident, just like Andrew. Wait. Kate stood before Caleb could stop her. Wait. I'll give you the map. Kate, no. Caleb reached for her. I won't watch my children burn. Kate's voice was steel. She pulled the map from her coat, held it up. This is what you want. Take it. Just let us go. Wells' eyes lit up. Smart woman. Toss it down. Kate looked at Caleb. His jaw was tight, his eyes burning with frustration. But he gave a small nod. She threw the map. It fluttered down through the air, landing in the snow at Wells' horse's feet. One of his men dismounted and picked it up, handed it to Wells. Wells unfolded it, studied it, then smiled. "Much obliged, Mrs. Hargrove." He tucked the map inside his coat. "Now then, about letting you go." He drew his pistol. "Wells," Caleb's rifle came up. "We had a deal." "No, you had hope." Wells aimed at Kate. "But hope doesn't change the fact that you all know too much. Can't have witnesses running around talking to federal marshals." Everything slowed down. Kate saw Wells' finger tighten on the trigger, saw Caleb's rifle swing toward him, saw Thomas lunge forward, trying to shield her with his small body. Then a rifle shot cracked from the trees. But it didn't come from Caleb. One of Wells' men fell from his saddle dead before he hit the ground. Everyone froze. "What?" Wells started to turn. Another shot. Another man fell. The clearing erupted in chaos. Wells's men scattered trying to find cover, not knowing where the shots were coming from. "Federal Marshal," a voice boomed from the trees. "Drop your weapons, you're all under arrest." Kate couldn't believe it. "Marshal Hayes. Here, now." More marshals appeared from the trees, 6 of them rifles ready surrounding Wells and his men. Wells's face went white. His gun dropped into the snow. "Marshal Hayes," he said, his smooth voice returning. "There's been a misunderstanding. These people were trespassing on my land. I was simply, save it." Hayes was a big man, gray-haired with eyes that had seen everything and weren't impressed. He rode forward, his deputy collecting weapons from Wells' men. "We've been tracking you for weeks, Wells. Got reports of fraud, extortion, and now attempted murder." His eyes moved to Kate and her children. "Everyone all right up there?" "Yes, sir," Kate called back, her voice shaking with relief. "We're fine." Hayes nodded. Then he looked at Caleb. "Caleb Thornton." "Yes, sir." "Got your letter, the one you sent from Copper Ridge. Took us a while to get here through the passes, but we made it." Hayes smiled grimly. "Just in time, looks like." Caleb had written ahead, had planned for this. Kate could have kissed him. "I've got evidence," Kate said, climbing down from the rocks. "Letters from my husband. Proof that Wells killed him." "We know." Hayes dismounted. "We've been building a case against Wells for months. Your husband's death was the final piece. Now we've got attempted murder on top of everything else." He looked at Wells. "Ezra Wells, you're under arrest for fraud, extortion, conspiracy, and murder." Wells' face twisted with rage. "You can't prove murder." "Actually, we can." Hayes pulled a paper from his coat. "One of your men turned witness. Told us everything about the Silver Creek mine. How you ordered the supports weakened. How you made sure Andrew Hargrove was working alone that day." His voice went cold. "You're done, Wells." They took Wells away in chains. His men too, all 12 of them, hands bound, headed for federal prison. Kate stood in the clearing, Sarah in her arms, watching them go. She felt numb, relieved, exhausted, victorious. "Ma'am." Hayes approached her gently. "We'll need your statement. And that map if you still have it." Wells took it. "We'll get it back." Hayes smiled. "And we'll make sure that spring stays public. Territory land. Available to everyone just like your husband wanted." Kate's eyes burned. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Thank Mr. Thornton. If he hadn't written when he did, we might not have made it in time." Hayes tipped his hat. "You've got a good man there." Kate looked at Caleb. He was talking to one of the deputies. His rifle finally lowered his scarred face, tired but at peace. "Yes," she said softly. "I do." The ride back to Bitter Creek took 2 days. Marshal Hayes and his deputies escorted them, Wells and his men chained in a wagon like the criminals they were. Kate rode beside Caleb, the children finally able to sleep without fear. And for the first time in months, she felt something that might have been peace. But peace was a fragile thing in Montana Territory. They arrived in Bitter Creek at sunset. The whole town turned out to watch Wells being taken to the jail, the man who'd controlled their water, their livelihoods, their futures for 5 years. Kate saw farmers in the crowd, ranchers, shopkeepers, all of them with the same look on their faces, relief mixed with disbelief. "Is it true?" Mrs. Henderson from the general store grabbed Kate's arm as she dismounted. "Did Wells really kill Andrew?" "Yes," Kate's voice carried across the square. She wanted everyone to hear. "He killed my husband because Andrew found a spring on public land. Water that belongs to all of us, not just to Wells." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some angry, some shocked, some just tired. "There'll be a trial," Marshal Hayes announced, his voice booming. "Federal trial in Helena. Anyone who wants to testify against Wells, you'll get your chance. Anyone he's wronged, anyone he's cheated, now's the time to speak up." "I'll testify." Old Man Garrett stepped forward, ran cattle north of town. "He charged me triple for water last summer. Watched half my herd die of thirst while he got rich." "Me too." Sarah Connolly, widow like Kate, trying to raise crops on land that should have been fertile. "My husband drank himself to death after Wells took everything we had. I'll testify." More voices joined. A dozen people, then 20, then more. All of them with stories of Wells' greed, Wells' cruelty, Wells' stranglehold on the valley. Kate watched it happen and felt something shift inside her. This wasn't just about Andrew anymore. It was about everyone Wells had hurt, everyone he'd stepped on while building his empire of water and lies. Mrs. Hargrove. A young man approached, nervous hat in his hands. Samuel Kearney, barely 20, worked a small farm east of town. "I'm sorry about your husband. He was a good man. Helped me repair my fence line last spring, wouldn't take payment for it." Kate's throat tightened. "That sounds like Andrew." "Yes, ma'am. And I want you to know, if you need anything, if those children need anything, you just ask. Lot of folks here owed your husband favors. Time we paid them back." "Thank you, Samuel." He nodded and melted back into the crowd. But Kate felt their eyes on her. Not pity anymore. Something else. Respect, maybe. Recognition that she'd stood up to Wells when no one else could. Reverend Foster pushed through the crowd, his kind face creased with concern. "Kate, dear girl, I heard what happened. Are you all right?" The children. "We're fine, Reverend, thanks to Mr. Thornton." Kate gestured to where Caleb stood, talking with the marshal. "He kept his promise to Andrew." Foster studied Caleb with thoughtful eyes. "I'd like to meet this man. Any friend of Andrew's is welcome in my church. I'll introduce you." But before she could, Thomas tugged on her skirt. "Mama, I'm hungry." Reality crashed back. Her children needed feeding, needed baths, needed beds. They'd been running for 2 days. Time to stop. "Reverend, do you know where we could stay tonight? I don't think I can make it back to the cabin." "You'll stay with me and Martha. We've got room." Foster smiled. "And Martha's been cooking all day. Seems word travels fast in this town." Kate felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you." "No thanks needed. We take care of our own here." Foster looked at the crowd, then back at Kate. "You're one of us now. Proven that twice over." They followed Foster to the parsonage, a neat white house beside the church. Martha Foster met them at the door, a round, cheerful woman who immediately swept the children inside with promises of hot food and warm beds. Caleb hung back, uncertain. "I can find a room at the boarding house. Don't want to impose." "You'll do no such thing." Martha's voice allowed no argument. "Any man who kept Andrew Hargrove's promise is welcome in this house. Now come inside before you freeze." The meal was simple but abundant. Stew and fresh bread, butter, and jam coffee that actually tasted like coffee. The children ate until their bellies were full. Then Martha took them upstairs for baths. Kate sat at the table with Caleb and the Reverend, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. Everything that had happened in the last 3 days crashed over her at once. The wolves, the cabin, the spring Wells and his guns, the near miss with death. Andrew was avenged. Wells was in chains. The spring would be public. They'd won. So why did she feel so empty? Kate Foster's gentle voice. "Are you all right?" "I don't know." She looked down at her hands, rough and calloused from 3 months of hard labor. I thought I'd feel different. Thought I'd feel like justice had been done. But I just feel tired. That's normal. Foster poured her more coffee. Grief doesn't end just because the villain gets caught. You're still a widow. Your children are still fatherless. Wells being in jail doesn't bring Andrew back. Kate's eyes burned. No, it doesn't. But, Foster continued softly, it does mean his death mattered. Mean he didn't die for nothing. That spring will bring life to this valley for generations. That's Andrew's legacy. Along with 3 children who barely remember him. They'll remember. Caleb spoke for the first time since they'd sat down. Because we'll make sure they do. We'll tell them stories. Show them the things he built. Teach them to be the kind of people he would have been proud of. He met Kate's eyes across the table. He lives on in them. And in what we do next. Kate wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe Andrew's death meant something beyond grief and loss and empty beds. What do we do next? She asked. We rebuild, Caleb said simply. We go back to that cabin. We finish the 4th wall. We plant crops come spring. We live the life Andrew wanted for you. We, Caleb's scarred face colored slightly. If you'll have me. I meant what I said before. I'd be honored to help, to stay. Foster cleared his throat. I hate to bring this up, but there are practicalities to consider. A widow and a single man living under the same roof. People will talk. Let them talk. Kate's voice was sharp. I don't care about gossip. I know you don't. But your children will. When they're older, when they're trying to make their way in the world. These things matter. Foster looked uncomfortable, but determined. I'm not suggesting anything improper. I'm just saying there are ways to make things proper. If that's what you both wanted. Kate felt heat rise to her face. She understood what Foster was suggesting. Marriage. To Caleb. A man she'd known for 3 days. Reverend she started. Think about it. Foster held up a hand. That's all I'm saying. Think about it. No rush, no pressure. But it's something to consider. An awkward silence fell. Caleb stared into his coffee like it held all the answers to the universe. Kate couldn't look at either of them. Martha saved them by coming downstairs with the children, all 3 scrubbed clean and dressed in borrowed nightclothes. They're ready for bed. Kate, you want to tuck them in? Yes, thank you. Kate stood quickly, grateful for the escape. Come on, babies. She got them settled in the guest room, all 3 in one big bed, warm and safe. Thomas was already half asleep, Emma clutching her wooden bird, Sarah snoring softly. Mama, Thomas mumbled. Are we safe now? Yes, baby, we're safe. Is Mr. Thornton staying? Kate hesitated. I don't know. Do you want him to? Yes. Thomas's eyes opened, suddenly serious. He's good. Like Papa was good. We need someone good. Out of the mouths of children. Kate kissed his forehead. Go to sleep. We'll figure everything out tomorrow. Love you, Mama. Love you too, baby. She stayed until they all slept, then went back downstairs. Caleb was standing by the window looking out at the dark street. Foster and Martha had discreetly disappeared. They're asleep, Kate said. Caleb turned. Good, they needed rest. So do you. When's the last time you slept? Can't remember. He smiled slightly. I'll sleep when I know you're all safe. We are safe. Wells is in jail. Wells has friends, has money. Men like that don't go down easy. Caleb's hand rested on his gun habit now. I'll feel better when he's convicted and sentenced. Kate moved to stand beside him. Outside, Bitter Creek was quiet. A few lights in windows, smoke rising from chimneys. A town trying to sleep, despite everything that had happened. What Foster said, Kate began, about people talking, about propriety. You don't owe me anything, Kate. Caleb's voice was firm. I kept my promise to Andrew. That's enough. If you want me to leave after the trial, I'll go. No hard feelings. What if I don't want you to leave? Caleb looked at her, surprise in his eyes. Kate pushed forward before she lost her nerve. Thomas asked if you were staying, said we need someone good. He's right. The children need a father figure. I need... She stopped. What did she need? Help with the cabin, protection from Wells' friends, someone to share the burden, or something more. You need time, Caleb said gently. Time to grieve, time to heal. I'm not going anywhere, Kate, but I won't rush you into something you're not ready for. What if I'm never ready? What if I can't love anyone the way I loved Andrew? Then I'll settle for friendship, for partnership, for being someone your children can count on. Caleb's scarred hand reached out, then hesitated. I'm not trying to replace Andrew. No one could. I'm just trying to honor him by taking care of what he loved most. Kate felt tears spill over. She'd been holding them back for 3 days, being strong for the children, being brave in front of Wells and his guns. But now, in the quiet dark with this scarred man, who'd ridden into her life and changed everything, she couldn't hold them anymore. I'm so tired, she whispered. So tired of being strong. Then don't be. Not tonight. Caleb's arms came around her, gentle, respectful, giving her a place to fall apart. I've got you. You're safe. Kate sobbed into his shoulder. Great heaving gasps of grief and relief and exhaustion. For Andrew, for herself, for the future that had died in that mine, and the uncertain one that stretched ahead. Caleb held her through it all, steady as the mountains, asking nothing, just standing. Always standing. When the tears finally stopped, Kate pulled back, embarrassed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize. Grief needs out. Better now than bottled up until it poisons you. Caleb's voice was rough with his own old pain. I know what that's like. Kate wiped her eyes. Your daughter. Grace. Yes. Caleb moved back to the window. I held it in for 2 years after she died. Thought being strong meant not feeling. Thought if I could just keep moving, keep working, I could outrun it. He laughed bitter. Doesn't work that way. When did you finally let it out? The day I got Andrew's letter. I was in a saloon in Wyoming, drinking myself stupid like I'd done every night for months. Read about his death, about you and the children, about the promise I'd made, and I just broke. Caleb's shoulders tensed. Cried like a baby in the middle of that saloon. Didn't care who saw. Didn't care about anything except that I'd lost another good man, and I hadn't been there to stop it. You couldn't have stopped it. No, but I could keep my promise. I could make sure his death meant something. Caleb turned to face her. That's when I started riding toward Montana. Took me 3 months through winter passes, lost my horse, nearly died twice. But I kept coming. Because I needed to do this. Needed to honor Andrew by protecting what he loved. Kate understood that need. That desperate hunger to make meaning from senseless loss. Thank you, she said. For coming, for standing, for everything. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. Kate took a breath. And I want you to stay. Not because of what Foster said about propriety. Not because the children need a father. But because I need a friend. Someone who understands what it's like to lose everything and keep going anyway. Caleb's expression softened. I can be that. And maybe someday, if we both heal enough, maybe we could be more. But not now. Not yet. I can wait. I'm good at waiting. Even if it takes years. Even then. Kate felt something loosen in her chest. Hope, maybe. Or just the possibility of hope. All right then. Partners. Partners. Caleb extended his hand. Kate shook it. His grip was warm, calloused, steady. The grip of a man who'd keep his word, even if it killed him. She was starting to understand why Andrew had trusted him. The next morning, Marshal Hayes found them at the parsonage. He had news, and none of it was good. Wells posted bail, Hayes said without preamble. Federal judge in Helena set it at $10,000. Wells had it in his bank account. He's out. Kate's blood ran cold. How is that possible? He tried to kill us. Judge says he's got rights. Presumption of innocence until proven guilty. Trial set for 3 weeks from now. Hayes looked frustrated. I argued he was a flight risk, but Wells has property here. Business's ties to the community. Judge didn't see him as a danger. Are you joking? Kate's voice rose. He murdered my husband. He tried to murder us. How is he not a danger? I agree with you, ma'am, but the law's the law. Hayes pulled out a document. I did manage to get a restraining order. Wells can't come within 100 yards of you or your children. He can't contact you directly or through intermediaries. He violates that, he goes right back to jail. A piece of paper won't stop him, Caleb said quietly. Men like Wells don't respect the law when it's inconvenient. I know. That's why I'm leaving 2 deputies here in Bitter Creek. They'll keep an eye on things until the trial. Hayes looked at Kate. I'm sorry, Mrs. Hargrove. I wish I could do more. You've done enough. Thank you. Hayes left. Kate stood in the parsonage parlor feeling the walls close in. Wells was out. Free to walk the streets, free to plan revenge, free to finish what he'd started. We can't go back to the cabin, she said. Not if Wells is out there. No, we can't. Caleb was already thinking planning. We stay in town, stay close to the deputies, stay visible. Wells is less likely to try something with witnesses around. And after the trial, he'll be in prison for life, and we can go home. If we survive that long, Kate thought, but didn't say. The children were upstairs, still sleeping, still innocent. She wouldn't let fear poison them. Reverend Foster appeared in the doorway. I heard. You'll all stay here until the trial. Martha and I insist. We can't impose for 3 weeks. You're not imposing. You're accepting Christian charity. Foster's voice was firm. Besides, it'll be good for Martha. She's been wanting more people in this big empty house. Kate wanted to argue, but the truth was, she had nowhere else to go. The cabin was too isolated, too vulnerable, and she couldn't put her children at risk. Thank you, Reverend. We'll stay. The next 3 weeks passed in a strange limbo. Kate and the children lived at the parsonage, helping Martha with cooking and cleaning, trying to establish some kind of normal routine. Caleb took a room at the boarding house despite Kate's protests, saying it was proper, and besides, he needed to be mobile in case Wells tried something. The town rallied around them. Samuel Kearney brought vegetables from his root cellar. Mrs. Henderson extended credit at the general store. Even Old Man Garrett, who never had a kind word for anyone, donated a side of beef. Kate realized Andrew had built more than she'd known. He'd built community, had helped people earn their respect, created a network of goodwill that now sustained his family when they needed it most. The children slowly returned to themselves. Thomas started smiling again, playing with other boys his age. Emma made friends with the minister's neighbor's daughter. Sarah took her first wobbly steps in the parsonage parlor, and Kate cried watching her, wishing Andrew could see. But underneath the surface, normalcy tension hummed. Wells was out there somewhere. His men were out there. And the trial loomed, a reckoning that could go either way. Kate tried not to think about what would happen if Wells was acquitted. Tried not to imagine him walking free while Andrew stayed in the ground. 2 days before the trial, Caleb came to the parsonage looking grim. What is it? Kate asked, her stomach dropping. Wells filed a countersuit, claims you and I conspired to frame him, says Andrew's death was an accident and we're using it to steal his land. Caleb's jaw was tight. He's got lawyers, good ones. They're trying to turn this around on us. Can they do that? They can try. Marshal Hayes says not to worry, they've got solid evidence. But juries are unpredictable, especially when Wells has money and we don't. Kate felt sick. So we could lose. We could, but we won't. Caleb's voice was steel. We've got truth on our side. We've got witnesses. We've got Andrew's map and letters. Wells can buy lawyers, but he can't buy his way out of murder. You sound sure. I have to be sure, because the alternative is unacceptable. That night, Kate couldn't sleep. She lay in the guest room listening to her children breathe, thinking about the trial, about Wells and his lawyers and his money and his power, about the possibility that justice might not be enough. Around midnight, she heard something outside, a soft sound like footsteps on gravel. Kate went to the window and looked out. At first, she saw nothing. Then, movement caught her eye. A figure standing across the street, watching the parsonage, watching her window. Kate's heart hammered. She couldn't see the face in the darkness, but she knew. Somehow she knew. Wells. He stood there for a long minute, just watching. Then he tipped his hat in a mocking salute and walked away, disappearing into the night. The message was clear. The restraining order meant nothing. He could get to her anytime he wanted. Kate stood at the window long after he'd gone, her whole body shaking. She should wake Caleb, should tell the deputies, should do something. But what was the point? Wells hadn't broken any laws. He'd just been standing on a public street. They couldn't arrest him for that. No, Wells was playing a longer game, trying to scare her, trying to make her break to run, to give up before the trial even started. Kate took a long breath and straightened her spine. She'd faced wolves and blizzards and near starvation. She'd stood up to Wells with guns pointed at her children. She wasn't going to break now, not while she was still standing. The morning of the trial dawned clear and cold. Kate, dressed in her best dress, the black one she'd worn to Andrew's funeral, seemed appropriate somehow. She was going to see justice done for him, one way or another. Martha helped her with her hair, pinning it up proper. "You look beautiful, dear. Andrew would be proud." "I don't feel beautiful. I feel terrified." "That's normal. But you'll do fine. Just tell the truth. That's all anyone can ask." The children stayed with Martha, while Kate and Caleb rode to Helena with Marshal Hayes and his deputies. The federal courthouse was an imposing building, all stone and columns and the weight of law. Inside, it was packed. Seemed like half of Bitter Creek had made the journey to watch Wells face justice. Farmers and ranchers and shopkeepers, all of them ready to testify to Wells's crimes. Wells sat at the defendant's table with 3 lawyers in expensive suits. He looked calm, almost bored. When Kate entered, his eyes found hers across the courtroom. He smiled. Kate forced herself to smile back. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her fear. The judge entered, and everyone stood. Judge Morrison was old-weathered, with eyes that had probably seen every kind of criminal Montana territory could produce. He looked at Wells like a man looks at something he scraped off his boot. "Be seated. We have a lot to get through today." Morrison's voice was dry. "Prosecution, call your first witness." And so it began. Marshal Hayes testified about the investigation, about finding evidence of fraud in Wells' land claims, about witness statements regarding extortion and threats. The prosecutor, a sharp young man named Blackwood, methodically built the case, document after document, tribunals, witness after witness, each one adding another brick to the wall of evidence against Wells. Then Blackwood called Kate. She walked to the witness stand on shaking legs, placed her hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. The truth. That's all she had. "Mrs. Hargrove," Blackwood began gently, "can you tell the court about your husband?" Kate took a breath. "Andrew was a good man, hard-working. He loved his family. He worked in the Silver Creek mine to give us a better life." "And what happened to him?" "He died in a mine collapse on September 12, 1885. They told me it was an accident." Kate's voice strengthened. "But it wasn't. It was murder." Wells' lawyers objected. The judge overruled. Blackwood continued. "What makes you say it was murder?" "Because Andrew found something Ezra Wells wanted to keep secret. A spring on public land. Water that would break Wells' monopoly on the valley." Kate looked directly at Wells. "And Wells killed him for it." Objection. Wells' lead lawyer, a slick man named Carruthers, shot to his feet. "Speculation. The witness has no direct evidence of—" "I have a letter." Kate pulled it from her pocket. "Written by Andrew the day before he died. Given to Caleb Thornton. It describes everything Andrew found, everything Wells was doing, and everything Andrew feared would happen. The courtroom erupted. Morrison banged his gavel. "Order, I'll have order." Blackwood took the letter, entered it as evidence, and read it aloud. Andrew's voice reaching from beyond the grave, telling the truth Wells had tried to bury. When Blackwood finished, the courtroom was silent. Then it was Carruthers' turn to cross-examine. "Mrs. Hargrove," he said smoothly, "isn't it true that your husband was heavily in debt?" "We had some debts, yes. Most families do." "And isn't it true that he'd been drinking heavily before his death?" "No, that's a lie." "Is it? We have testimony from several miners who say Andrew Hargrove came to work drunk on multiple occasions." Kate's hands clenched. "Those miners work for Wells. They're lying to protect him. Or perhaps you're lying to enrich yourself. This spring your husband supposedly found, if it's declared public land, you stand to benefit financially, don't you?" "I don't care about money. I care about the truth." "The truth?" Carruthers smiled. "Or a convenient story to blame a successful businessman for your husband's tragic accident." Kate felt rage building in her chest. Andrew was murdered. Wells ordered those mine supports weakened. He made sure Andrew was alone that day. He killed my husband to protect his empire of lies. "You're very passionate. But passion isn't evidence, Mrs. Hargrove. Do you have any proof, any actual proof that my client ordered anything?" Kate hesitated. They had circumstantial evidence. Witnesses. Andrew's letter. But direct proof. "We have a witness," Blackwood interjected, standing. "A man who was there, who heard Wells give the order." Carruthers' smooth facade cracked. "What witness?" "One of your own men, Mr. Carruthers. He's agreed to testify in exchange for immunity." The courtroom erupted again. Wells went pale. His lawyers huddled, whispering frantically. Morrison banged his gavel. "We'll hear from this witness. Prosecution, call him." And they did. A man named Jack Porter took the stand, nervous and sweating. He'd been one of Wells' foremen at the mine. "I was there," Porter said quietly. "The night before the collapse, Wells came to the mine with 2 of his men, told me to weaken the supports in Shaft 7, said to make it look like an accident." He swallowed hard. "I didn't want to do it. But Wells said if I refused, I'd be next. So I did. I weakened those supports, and the next day, Andrew Hargrove died. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Porter looked at Kate, tears on his face. "Your husband was a good man. Didn't deserve what happened. I've been carrying this weight for months. Can't carry it anymore." Kate couldn't breathe. Here it was. The proof. The truth from the mouth of the man who'd done Wells's dirty work. Carruthers tried to destroy Porter on cross-examination, tried to paint him as a liar seeking immunity. But Porter held firm. He knew what he'd done, and he wasn't going to let Wells walk away from it. The trial continued for 2 more days. More witnesses, more evidence. Wells' lawyers fought hard, but the truth was too strong. On the final day, both sides gave closing arguments. Then the jury retired to deliberate. Kate waited in the hallway with Caleb, her stomach in knots. Everything came down to 12 strangers. 12 people who'd decide if Andrew's death meant anything. "They'll convict," Caleb said quietly. "The evidence is overwhelming." "You don't know that." "I do. I've seen enough trials. Juries can smell guilt, and Wells reeks of it." 2 hours later, the jury came back. Everyone filed into the courtroom. Kate's heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She gripped Caleb's hand without thinking. The jury foreman stood. "We, the jury, find the defendant Ezra Wells guilty of murder in the 1st degree." The courtroom exploded. Kate heard the words, but they didn't feel real. Guilty. Wells was guilty. Andrew had justice. Morrison banged his gavel, calling for order. Then he looked at Wells with cold eyes. "Ezra Wells, you have been found guilty of one of the most heinous crimes imaginable. You murdered a good man to protect your illegal business dealings. You threatened his family. You showed no remorse, no humanity, no decency." Morrison's voice was iron. I sentence you to hang by the neck until dead. May God have mercy on your soul." Wells finally broke. His smooth facade shattered. He lunged toward Kate, screaming threats, screaming curses. Deputies grabbed him, dragged him away, still screaming. Kate just sat there numb. It was over. Finally, over. Caleb's arm came around her shoulders. "You did it, Kate. You got him. Andrew did it. This was all Andrew. No, this was you. You were strong enough to stand up, to testify, to see it through. Andrew would be so proud." Kate let herself lean into Caleb's strength. People crowded around, congratulating her, thanking her. The spring would be public. The valley would have water. Wells' empire would be dismantled, his assets sold to pay back the people he'd cheated. Justice. Finally, justice. But as Kate walked out of that courthouse into the cold Helena afternoon, she didn't feel victorious. She just felt tired and alone. Because at the end of the day, Wells being convicted didn't bring Andrew back, didn't fill the empty space beside her in bed, didn't give her children their father. It just meant the man who'd taken him was finally paying for it. Kate supposed that would have to be enough. They rode back to Bitter Creek the next morning. Kate sat beside Caleb in the wagon Marshal Hayes had arranged, watching the territory pass by. The same mountains, the same sky, the same frozen ground. But everything felt different now. Wells was condemned. The spring was protected. Andrew's death had meaning. So why did Kate feel like she was walking through fog? "You're quiet," Caleb said after an hour of silence. "Just thinking." "About..." Kate pulled her shawl tighter. "About what comes next. The trial's over. Wells will hang. We got justice. But I don't know what to do with that. You live. You rebuild. You give your children the future Andrew wanted for them." "Is it that simple?" "No." Caleb's hands were steady on the reins. "It's not simple at all, but it's necessary." Kate looked at him. His scarred face was set, determined, like he could will them all into a better future through sheer force of stubbornness. Maybe he could. He'd done impossible things already. "What about you?" she asked. "What comes next for Caleb Thornton?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I keep my promise. I help you rebuild that cabin. Make sure you and the children are settled. After that..." He shrugged. "Haven't thought that far ahead. You could stay. I meant what I said before. As partners. Yes, partners." Kate hesitated. "Unless you want something different." Caleb's hands tightened on the reins. "What I want doesn't matter. What matters is what's right for you and those children." "And what if what's right for us is having you stay?" "Then I'll stay. For as long as you need me." Kate heard what he didn't say. "For as long as you need me, but not longer. Not if it meant imposing. Not if it meant being a burden." "Caleb, look at me." He turned. His eyes were guarded, careful. "I'm not asking you to stay out of obligation. I'm asking because I want you there. Because the children want you there. Because..." Kate stopped, unsure how to finish that sentence. Because I'm tired of doing everything alone, and you make it easier." It wasn't a declaration of love. Wasn't even close. But it was honest, and honesty was all Kate had left to give. Caleb's expression softened. "Then I'll stay. For as long as you'll have me." "Good." Kate turned back to the road. "That's settled then." They arrived in Bitter Creek at sunset. The whole town turned out again, but this time it was different. This time they were celebrating. Wells was convicted. The spring was public. Water would flow free come spring. Reverend Foster led them in prayer right there in the street, thanking God for justice, for deliverance, for new beginnings. Kate bowed her head and tried to feel grateful. Tried to feel something besides numb. The children ran to her when Martha brought them from the parsonage. Thomas crashed into her legs. Emma grabbed her hand. Sarah reached up to be held. Kate gathered them close, breathing in their warmth, their life, their future. "Is the bad man gone, Mama?" Emma asked. Yes, baby. He's gone. He can't hurt us anymore. Good. Emma's small face was fierce. I didn't like him. Me neither, sweetie. Me neither. That night, the town threw a celebration at the church hall. Someone brought a fiddle, someone else brought whiskey, and people danced and laughed like they'd been holding their breath for 5 years and could finally exhale. Kate sat with Martha watching Thomas dance with Samuel Kearney's daughter, a girl about his age who giggled every time Thomas stepped on her feet. Emma played with other children, her wooden bird forgotten for once. Sarah slept in Kate's arms, exhausted by all the excitement. You should dance, Martha said. Celebrate a little. I don't feel like celebrating. I know, but sometimes we have to do things even when we don't feel like it. For the children. For the community. Martha patted her hand. Andrew would want you to live, Kate. Not just survive. Live. Kate watched Caleb across the room. He was talking with some of the ranchers, probably about water rights and land use, and all the practical things that needed figuring out now that Wells's empire was crumbling. He looked tired, but at peace, like a man who'd finished a long journey. Do you think it's wrong? Kate asked quietly. To think about moving forward, it's only been 4 months since Andrew died. There's no right timeline for grief. Martha's voice was gentle. Some people need years. Some people need months. Some people find that moving forward is the only way to honor what they've lost. She looked at Kate. What do you think Andrew would want? Kate closed her eyes, trying to hear Andrew's voice. What would he say? Live, Katie. Don't stop living because I'm gone. Give our children a good life. Be happy. That's all I ever wanted for you. He'd want me to be happy, Kate whispered. Then be happy, or at least try to be. That's all anyone can ask. Someone called for Reverend Foster to say a few words. He stood, his kind face beaming, and raised his cup. Friends, neighbors, family. We've been through dark times. Ezra Wells controlled this valley with an iron fist for too long. He hurt good people. He killed good men. But today, justice prevailed. Today we learned that truth is stronger than money, that courage is stronger than cruelty, that a community standing together is stronger than any tyrant. Foster looked at Kate. And we learned that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is keep standing when everything tells us to fall. Kate Hargrove, you're an inspiration to us all, to your strength, your courage, and to Andrew's memory. Everyone raised their cups. To Andrew. Kate's throat closed. She managed to lift her cup, managed to smile, managed to hold it together until the attention shifted away. Then she handed Sarah to Martha and slipped outside. The night air was cold and clean. Kate walked to the edge of town to the small cemetery where Andrew lay under frozen ground. She'd only been here once since the funeral, unable to face the reality of him being gone. But tonight she needed to talk to him. We did it, Andrew. Kate knelt beside the grave marker, simple wood with his name carved deep. Come spring, they'd replace it with something permanent, something that would last. We got Wells. He's going to hang for what he did to you. The spring is public just like you wanted. Your death meant something. It changed everything. The wind moaned through the cemetery. Kate pulled her shawl tighter. The children are growing. Thomas is so much like you, it breaks my heart. Emma's starting to forget, but she still has that bird you made her. Sarah took her first steps. You missed it. You're missing everything. Kate's voice cracked. I'm trying to be strong for them, trying to be the mother they need. But I'm so tired, Andrew. So tired of doing it alone. Footsteps behind her. Kate turned to find Caleb standing a respectful distance away. Sorry. Didn't mean to intrude. Just wanted to make sure you were all right. I'm fine. Just needed a moment. Caleb moved closer. Mind if I join you? Kate nodded. Caleb knelt beside Andrew's grave, his scarred hand touching the marker. Hey, Andrew. It's done. Wells is convicted. Your family is safe. I kept my promise. Caleb's voice was rough. I wish you were here to see it. Wish you could see your children growing. Wish—" He stopped. "I'm going to take care of them. Not trying to replace you. No one could. But I'll stand where you would have stood. I'll fight what you would have fought. That's my promise to you." Kate felt tears on her cheeks. She reached out and took Caleb's hand. He gripped it tight, and they knelt there together in the cold cemetery, two broken people trying to honor a good man who died too soon. "He'd be glad you came," Kate said finally. "Glad you kept your word." Andrew always said the measure of a man was whether he kept his promises. Then I hope I measure up. You do, more than you know. They stayed until the cold drove them back inside. The celebration was winding down, people heading home to warm beds and the promise of a better tomorrow. Kate collected her sleeping children and let Martha lead them all back to the parsonage. But as she tucked Thomas and Emma into bed that night, Thomas grabbed her hand. "Mama, can we go home soon? To the cabin?" Kate's heart clenched. "The cabin's not finished, baby. We still need to—" "Mr. Thornton can finish it. He's good at building things." Thomas's eyes were serious. "I want to go home. I want to be where Papa was." Kate looked at Caleb, who stood in the doorway. He nodded. "We can do it," his eyes said. "We can make it work." "All right," Kate said. "We'll go home, soon as it's safe. Tomorrow. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon." Thomas smiled and closed his eyes. "Good. I miss home." Kate kissed his forehead and left him sleeping. In the hallway, she found Caleb waiting. "You sure about this?" he asked. "Going back? There might still be some of Wells' men out there who haven't gotten the message. We can't hide forever. And Thomas is right. We need to go home. Need to start building the life Andrew wanted for us. Then we go back. Tomorrow, I'll ride out to the cabin, make sure it's secure. Do any repairs that are needed. You and the children can follow in a few days. We go together. Kate? Together. Caleb. I'm done being left behind while men go off to fight my battles. We go together, or we don't go at all." Caleb studied her, then nodded slowly. "Together, then. But we bring the deputies with us. At least until we're sure it's safe." "Agreed." 3 days later, they loaded a wagon with supplies and headed back to the cabin. Marshal Hayes had left 2 deputies in Bitter Creek, and both of them escorted the wagon. Caleb rode ahead, rifle ready, watching for trouble. But the land was quiet. Peaceful even. Snow covered everything like a clean blanket, hiding all the ugliness underneath. When the cabin came into view, Kate's breath caught. It looked smaller than she remembered. More fragile. The 4th wall Caleb had built still stood, but the whole structure looked like it might collapse under the weight of one more winter. "We have a lot of work to do," Caleb said. "Yes, we do." Kate climbed down from the wagon. The children tumbled out after her, Thomas running toward the cabin like it was a palace instead of a half-finished shelter. "Mama, look! The wall's still here. Mr. Thornton's wall is still here." Kate smiled despite herself. "Yes, baby, it's still here." They spent the rest of the day unloading supplies and making the cabin livable again. Caleb and the deputies did repairs while Kate cleaned and organized. By sunset, they had a fire going, food cooking, and 4 solid walls keeping out the cold. The deputies stayed for dinner, then headed back to town with promises to check in regularly. And suddenly, Kate found herself alone with Caleb and her children in the middle of the territory, with night falling fast. It should have felt scary. Instead, it felt right. Thomas and Emma played by the fire while Kate nursed Sarah. Caleb sat at the table carving something from a piece of scrap wood. His hands moved with the same easy competence Andrew's had. "What are you making?" Kate asked. "Horse for Thomas. Figure he's getting too old for the one Andrew made. Needs something bigger." "You don't have to do that." "I want to." Caleb held up the half-finished carving. "Andrew was good at this. Better than me. But I'm learning." Kate watched him work. Watched the way his scarred hands shaped the wood with patience and care. "You're good with them. The children. They're easy to be good to. They're good kids." "They are. Andrew and I did something right." Caleb looked up. You did everything right, Kate. Those children are strong and brave and kind because of you. Don't sell yourself short. I had help. Not for the last 4 months you didn't. You kept them alive through winter with no money, no help, and half a cabin. That's not nothing. Kate felt her throat tighten. She'd been so focused on what she'd lost that she hadn't thought much about what she'd managed to keep. Her children were alive, fed, warm, safe. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For seeing me. Not just the widow Andrew left behind, but me. Caleb's eyes held hers across the table. I see you, Kate. Have since the first night. You're the strongest person I've ever met. I don't feel strong. You don't have to feel it for it to be true. They sat in comfortable silence, Caleb carving Kate, rocking Sarah. Outside, wind whispered through the eaves, but inside it was warm. Safe. Almost like a home. Thomas came over and leaned against Kate's shoulder. Mama, are we going to be okay now? Yes, baby. We're going to be okay. Promise. Kate looked at Caleb. He nodded. Promise, Kate said. We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be happy. Good. Thomas yawned. I'm tired. Then let's get you to bed. Kate tucked all 3 children into the bed she'd shared with Andrew. It felt strange, wrong almost to be sleeping there without him. But she pushed that feeling down. The children needed rest. Everything else could wait. When they were all asleep, Kate came back to the main room. Caleb had banked the fire and was spreading his bedroll by the hearth. You don't have to sleep on the floor, Kate said. There's room in the... She stopped. Was there room? Should she offer, the floor's fine. I've slept in worse places. Caleb looked up at her. Get some rest, Kate. Tomorrow we start building. Building what? Whatever comes next. Kate wanted to ask what he meant, but exhaustion hit her like a wall. She was too tired to think, too tired to plan, too tired for anything except sleep. Good night, Caleb. Good night, Kate. She went to bed and lay in the darkness, listening to her children breathe, listening to Caleb move around the cabin, checking locks and windows. Always vigilant. Always standing guard. Not while I'm standing, he'd said that first night. Kate realized she believed him now. Believed he'd stand between them and danger as long as he drew breath. Believed he'd keep his promises no matter what it cost. And maybe someday, that belief could turn into something more. But not tonight. Tonight, she just needed to sleep and let tomorrow take care of itself. The next weeks fell into a rhythm. Caleb worked on the cabin during the day, reinforcing walls, building furniture, making the place solid and permanent. Kate tended the children, cooked meals, started planning for spring planting. They worked side by side, not saying much, just doing what needed doing. Thomas followed Caleb everywhere, learning to hammer nails, and saw timber and measure twice before cutting. Emma helped Kate with cooking and mending. Even Sarah contributed in her way, entertaining them all with her wobbly walking and gibberish talking. It felt almost normal, almost like a family. But at night, when the children slept and Kate lay awake in the darkness, she felt Andrew's absence like a physical weight. 4 months gone, and she still reached for him in her sleep. Still woke expecting to find him beside her. Still heard his voice in quiet moments. The grief was changing shape, not as sharp as it had been. More like a dull ache that never quite went away. Kate wondered if it ever would. One evening, about 3 weeks after they'd returned to the cabin, Samuel Kearney rode up with news from town. Wells is dead, Samuel said without preamble. Hanged this morning in Helena. Marshal Hayes sent word. Kate sat down hard. She'd known it was coming. The sentence had been passed. But knowing and feeling were different things. How do you feel about it? Caleb asked her after Samuel left. I don't know. I thought I'd feel satisfied. Justice done, debt paid. But I just feel empty. Kate stared into the fire. He's dead. Andrew's dead. And none of it changes anything. It changes everything. The valley has water now. Wells' land is being redistributed. People can build real lives here without fear. Caleb sat beside her. Andrew's death wasn't for nothing. I know, but it doesn't bring him back. No, it doesn't. Caleb's voice was gentle. But it means something. Has to mean something, or we're all just stumbling around in the dark hoping for the best. Kate looked at him. Do you believe that things mean something after everything you've lost? Caleb was quiet for a long time. Then, I have to believe it. Because the alternative is that Grace died for no reason. That Andrew died for no reason. That we're all just accidents waiting to happen. And I can't live in that world. So we make meaning where we can. Yes, we make meaning. We honor the dead by living well, by being the people they believed we could be. Caleb's scarred hand reached out, hesitated, then covered hers. That's all we can do, Kate. Live well and remember. Kate turned her hand over, lacing her fingers through his. His grip was warm, steady, alive. Thank you. For being here. For standing. Always. They sat like that until the fire burned low and the cold drove them to bed. But that night, for the first time since Andrew died, Kate didn't wake reaching for a ghost. She woke knowing exactly where she was and who was keeping watch. And that was enough. Spring came slowly to Montana territory. The snow melted, revealing brown earth waiting to be worked. Kate and Caleb planted crops working side by side in the mud. Corn and wheat and vegetables that would feed them through the next winter. The spring Andrew had found was officially designated public land. The territory built a cistern and pipeline, bringing water to farms that had been dry for years. Crops grew. Cattle flourished. The valley bloomed. People started calling it Hargrove Spring. Andrew's name on every map, every deed, every document. His legacy written in water and life. Kate stood at the spring one afternoon with the children watching clean water bubble up from the earth. Thomas threw stones into the pool. Emma waded in the shallows. Sarah clapped her hands at the splashing. Papa found this, Thomas said proudly to another boy who'd come with his family. My papa saved everybody. Kate's eyes burned. Yes, baby, he did. Caleb stood beside her, quiet and steady. He'd be proud of you, of all of you. I hope so. I know so. They walked back to the cabin as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The cabin looked different now, solid, complete. Windows with real glass, a door that hung straight, a roof that didn't leak, walls that would stand for years. Inside, Kate cooked dinner while Caleb helped Thomas with his reading. Emma set the table. Sarah babbled in her high chair. It was domestic and ordinary and everything Andrew had wanted for them. After dinner, after the children were in bed, Kate and Caleb sat outside watching stars come out. The air smelled like spring, like growth, like possibility. I've been thinking, Kate said carefully, about what comes next. And I don't want you to leave. When the cabin's done, when the crops are planted, when everything's settled, I don't want you to go. Caleb turned to look at her. I wasn't planning on leaving unless you asked me to. But you're living in the barn, eating meals with us but sleeping out there like you're hired help. Kate took a breath. That's not what I want. What do you want, Kate? Kate looked at this scarred man who'd ridden into her life on the worst night and stayed through everything after, who'd kept his promises, who'd stood when others would have run, who made her children laugh and taught them to be brave and never once asked for anything in return. What did she want? I want a partner, someone to build a life with, someone the children can count on. Kate's voice steadied. I want what Reverend Foster suggested all those weeks ago. A marriage. A real one, not just for propriety. Because I trust you, Caleb. And trust is a better foundation than passion anyway. Caleb's expression was unreadable in the starlight. You loved Andrew. I did. I still do. I always will. Kate met his eyes. But he's gone, and I'm still here. And I'm tired of living like half a person. I want to be whole again. Want to build something new without forgetting what I had. And you think I can help with that? I think we can help each other. Kate reached for his hand. We're both broken, Caleb. Both carrying grief we'll never fully set down. But maybe two broken people can make something whole together. Maybe that's enough. Caleb laced his fingers through hers. It's more than enough, Kate. It's everything. So you'll stay, not just as a ranch hand or a family friend, but as my husband. On one condition. Kate's heart clenched. What condition? That you understand I'm not trying to replace Andrew. I'll honor his memory. I'll make sure the children know who their father was. I'll never ask you to forget him or stop loving him. Caleb's voice was firm. I'll be your husband, but Andrew will always be the father of your children. That's not negotiable. Relief flooded through Kate. That's exactly what I want. Exactly what they need. Then yes, I'll stay. I'll marry you. I'll build this life with you. Caleb pulled her close. And I'll keep standing, Kate, for as long as you need me. Not while you're standing. Not while I'm standing. Kate leaned into him, letting herself rest against his solid warmth. Above them, stars wheeled across the Montana sky. The same stars that had watched Andrew die. The same stars that would watch them live. When? Caleb asked. Soon. Before summer. I don't want to wait. Neither do I. They sat in comfortable silence, holding hands watching the night. Tomorrow they'd tell the children. Tomorrow they'd ride to town and talk to Reverend Foster. Tomorrow they'd start building something new. But tonight they just sat together under the stars, two people who'd survived the worst and decided to keep living anyway. And maybe Kate thought that was the bravest thing of all. Morning came with the smell of coffee and bacon. Kate woke to find Caleb already up cooking breakfast, while the children still slept. She watched him from the doorway, this man who'd become part of their lives so completely she couldn't remember what it felt like before he arrived. You're staring, Caleb said without turning around. Just thinking. About how we tell the children, about us. Caleb flipped the bacon. We tell them the truth, that we care about each other, that we want to build a life together, that their papa will always be their papa, but I'll be here too. What if they're not ready? Then we wait. Caleb turned to face her. I'm not in a hurry, Kate. We do this on their time, not ours. Kate moved into the kitchen, poured herself coffee. Thomas asked me last week if you were going to be his new papa. Caleb went still. What did you tell him? I told him nobody could replace his papa, but that you were family now. Kate sipped her coffee. He seemed satisfied with that. And Emma asked if you were going to marry me, like in her storybook. Kate smiled. She said princesses always marry the brave knight who saves them. I'm no knight. You are to her. They stood in comfortable silence, drinking coffee, listening to the cabin wake up around them. Then Thomas appeared, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Morning, Mama. Morning, Mr. Thornton. Morning, son. Caleb dished up bacon and eggs. You hungry? Always. Thomas climbed onto his chair. Are we doing chores today? After breakfast, gotta mend that fence on the north pasture. Can I help? Wouldn't want to do it without you. Thomas beamed. Kate watched the easy affection between them, the way Thomas looked at Caleb, with something close to worship. The way Caleb treated Thomas like he mattered, like his help was real and needed. Emma wandered out next, dragging her wooden bird. She climbed into Kate's lap without a word, still half asleep. Kate held her close, breathing in the little girl smell of her. Emma, sweetie, can I ask you something? How would you feel if Mr. Thornton stayed here forever? Not just visiting, but living here with us all the time. Emma perked up. Would he make pancakes every morning? Caleb laughed. I could probably manage that. Then yes, he should stay. Emma yawned. Can I have pancakes now? Kate met Caleb's eyes over Emma's head. He was smiling that rare full smile that transformed his scarred face. Pancakes coming up, he said. After breakfast, while Caleb and Thomas worked on the fence, Kate took Emma to visit Andrew's grave. They'd made it a habit coming once a week to leave flowers, or just to talk. Kate wanted the children to remember to feel connected to the father they'd lost. Emma set her bird on the grave marker. Hi, Papa. We brought you flowers. Mama said they're called forget-me-nots. That's a funny name. Kate knelt beside her daughter. Papa, things are changing here. We're doing well. The crops are growing. The cabin's finished. The children are happy. She took a breath. And Caleb wants to stay, not just as a friend, but as family, as my husband. The wind whispered through the cemetery. Emma picked up her bird, making it fly through the air. I need you to be okay with this, Kate continued softly. I need to know you'd understand. You asked Caleb to take care of us, and he has. Better than I could have hoped. But it's become more than that. I care about him, Andrew. Not the way I loved you. Nothing could replace that. But in a new way. A different way. Mama, why are you crying? Kate touched her cheeks, surprised to find them wet. Because I miss your papa, and because I'm happy, and because sometimes those feelings happen at the same time. Papa would want you to be happy. Emma said it with such certainty, such childlike wisdom. That's what you always tell us. Papa wants us to be happy. You're right, baby. He does. They walked back to the cabin hand in hand. Caleb and Thomas were finishing the fence, both of them sweaty and covered in dirt. Thomas was chattering away about something, and Caleb was listening like every word mattered. This could work, Kate thought. This could actually work. That evening, after the children were asleep, Kate and Caleb rode into town. They needed to talk to Reverend Foster, needed to make plans, needed to figure out how to build a marriage out of grief and promises and the fragile hope that life could be good again. Foster was in his study when they arrived, reading by lamplight. He looked up in surprise when Martha showed them in. Kate, Caleb, is everything all right? Everything's fine, Reverend. Kate sat down, Caleb standing beside her. We wanted to talk to you about getting married. Foster's face broke into a smile. Well, that's wonderful news. When were you thinking? Soon, before summer. Kate glanced at Caleb. We don't need anything fancy, just something simple. And honest, Caleb added. We're not pretending this is a love match. We're two people trying to build something good for those children. Want to do it right in the eyes of God and the community. Foster's expression turned serious. Marriage is more than convenience, you know. It's a covenant. A promise to honor and cherish each other in good times and bad. We know, Kate said. And we're ready for that. Ready to be partners in every way. What about love that usually comes into it somewhere? Kate chose her words carefully. I loved Andrew with everything I had. When he died, I thought that part of me died too. But Caleb's teaching me that there are different kinds of love. Love built on respect and trust and shared purpose. Maybe that's not the passionate romance of storybooks, but it's real. And it's strong. And it's what we both need. Foster looked at Caleb. And you, what do you need? A reason to keep standing. A family to protect. A life that means something. Caleb's hand found Kate's shoulder. I had that once with my wife and daughter. Lost it all. Thought I was done. But Kate and those children, they've given me a second chance. I won't waste it. Foster studied them both for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, I'll marry you. But I want you to do something first. What? Kate asked. I want you to wait 1 month. Use that time to really think about this. Make sure it's what you both want. Marriage is forever, and forever's a long time to live with the wrong decision. We're sure, Caleb said. Then 1 month won't hurt. Give the children time to adjust to the idea. Give yourselves time to be certain. Foster smiled gently. If you still want this in a month, I'll perform the ceremony with my blessing. Kate wanted to argue, But Foster was right. They'd been through so much in the last few months. What was one more month to make sure they were making the right choice? All right, she agreed. 1 month. They rode back to the cabin under a sky full of stars. Kate leaned against Caleb's back, feeling the solid warmth of him, and let herself imagine what life might look like a month from now. Married, partners, a family not bound by blood, but by choice. You having second thoughts? Caleb asked. No, are you? Not even close. They arrived home to find Martha Foster sitting on the porch rocking Sarah. The boys wanted to play one more game before bed, Martha explained. And this little one was fussing. Hope you don't mind. Not at all. Thank you, Martha. Kate took Sarah, who immediately snuggled into her shoulder. How were they? Good as gold. Thomas told me all about the fence he and Caleb built. That boy thinks the world of you, Caleb. Caleb ducked his head, uncomfortable with praise. He's a good kid, makes it easy. He needs a father, they all do. Martha stood gathering her shawl. I'm glad you two are figuring this out. Andrew would approve. After Martha left, Kate got the children settled for the night. Thomas and Emma were tired from playing asleep almost before their heads hit the pillow. Kate tucked them in, kissed their foreheads, and whispered a prayer of thanks that they were safe and warm and loved. In the main room, Caleb was stoking the fire. He'd taken his shirt off to wash, and Kate saw the scars that covered his back and shoulders. Evidence of a hard life of battles fought and survived. Does it hurt? She asked quietly. Caleb pulled his shirt back on. Not anymore. Just reminders of where I've been. Nay. Do you ever wish you could go back before the war, before all of it? No, I wouldn't be who I am without those scars. Wouldn't have met Andrew. Wouldn't have found Grace. Wouldn't be here with you and your children. Caleb turned to face her. Everything I've been through led me to this moment. I wouldn't change that. Kate moved closer. I'm glad you're here. Glad you kept your promise. Glad you stayed. So am I. They stood close, not quite touching the fire warming them both. Kate wanted to reach out to bridge the gap between them, but something held her back. Fear, maybe, or respect for Andrew's memory, or just uncertainty about what came next. We have a month, Caleb said, reading her hesitation. No need to rush anything. We figure this out together one day at a time. One day at a time, Kate agreed. The month passed faster than Kate expected. The days fell into a rhythm of work and meals and bedtime stories. Caleb built a second bedroom, giving the children their own space. Kate started a garden planting vegetables and flowers that Andrew had talked about growing someday. The children thrived, laughing more, playing more slowly, healing from the trauma of the winter. And Kate found herself watching Caleb, the way he was gentle with Emma, the way he pushed Thomas to be braver without pushing too hard, the way he sang to Sarah in a voice rough but sweet, the way he looked at Kate when he thought she wasn't watching, like she was something precious and fragile and worth protecting. She was falling for him, not the wild, passionate love she'd had with Andrew, something quieter, steadier. Love built on daily kindness and shared burdens and the gradual realization that she wanted him there, not just because she needed him, but because he made her happy. 2 weeks before the wedding, Samuel Kearney rode up with news from Helena. The territory was redistributing Wells' land, selling it cheap to families who wanted to homestead. The money would go to repaying everyone Wells had cheated. There's a piece about 5 miles north of here, Samuel said. Good water, good soil. I'm thinking of buying it, starting a real farm. Building something that lasts. That's wonderful, Samuel. Kate poured him coffee. You'll do well. Hope so. And I was thinking once I get established, maybe I could court your friend Ruth Henderson, if that's all right with you. Kate smiled. Ruth was a widow too, running the general store alone since her husband died. I think Ruth would like that very much. After Samuel left, Kate found Caleb in the barn fixing a broken wagon wheel. Did you hear Samuel's buying land, starting fresh? Good for him. Valley's going to bloom now that people have water and opportunity. Caleb hammered a spoke into place. Andrew's dream is coming true. Yes, it is. Kate sat on a hay bale watching him work. Do you ever think about buying more land? Expanding? Sometimes. But I figure we've got enough to manage right now. Get this place running smooth first, then think about growing. We. You said we. Caleb looked up. That's what we'll be, isn't it, partners? What's mine is yours. What's yours is mine. Kate's chest tightened with emotion. I never thought I'd have this again. A partner. Someone to build dreams with. You're getting a pretty broken partner. Hope that's all right. We're both broken. Maybe that's why this works. Caleb set down his hammer and came to sit beside her. Kate, I need to tell you something. About my wife. About Grace. Kate took his hand. You don't have to. I do, because you need to know what you're getting. Caleb stared at their joined hands. I wasn't there when my wife died in childbirth. Was working a claim 3 days away. By the time I got back, she was already buried. I held my daughter and I made a promise I'd never leave her. That I'd always be there. His voice cracked, but I broke that promise. Kept taking jobs that took me away. Told myself I was building a future. Truth was, I couldn't face being a father alone. Couldn't handle the responsibility. So I left Grace with my sister more and more. And when she got sick, I was 3 days away. Again. 3 days that might have made the difference. Tears ran down his scarred face. I wasn't there when she died. Wasn't there when she was crying for me. I failed her, Kate. Failed the one person who needed me most. And I've been carrying that weight ever since. Kate pulled him close. Let him cry into her shoulder. You made a mistake. You're human. It doesn't make you a bad father. Doesn't make me a good one either. No, but it makes you someone who understands how precious time is. Someone who won't waste it. Kate lifted his face, made him look at her. You've been here every day for my children. Every single day. That's what matters. Not what you did or didn't do in the past. What you're doing right now. I won't fail them, Kate. Won't fail you. I swear it. I know. That's why I'm marrying you. The day of the wedding arrived with unseasonably warm weather. Spring was coming early, melting the last of the snow, coaxing green shoots from the ground. The valley was transforming just like Kate's life was transforming. She dressed in her best dress, the blue one she'd worn when Andrew courted her. It felt right somehow, bringing something from her past into her future. Martha helped with her hair, weaving wildflowers through the braids. You look beautiful, dear. Andrew would be so happy for you. Kate looked at herself in the mirror. Did she look like a bride or just a widow trying to move on? Maybe both. Maybe that was okay. The ceremony was simple, held at the church with just a handful of people. Samuel Kearney stood up with Caleb. Martha stood with Kate. The children sat in the front row, Thomas looking proud in his cleanest shirt, Emma clutching her bird, Sarah babbling happily in Martha's arms. Reverend Foster began. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Kate Hargrove and Caleb Thornton. Marriage is not to be entered into lightly, but reverently, deliberately, and in accordance with the purposes for which it was instituted by God. Kate looked at Caleb. He was nervous, she realized. This scarred warrior who'd faced down Wells and his guns was nervous about marrying a widow with 3 children. It made her love him a little more. Caleb, do you take Kate to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? I do. Caleb's voice was steady. Kate, do you take Caleb to be your lawfully wedded husband? To have and to hold from this day forward for better or worse, for richer or poorer in sickness and in health, until death do you part. Kate took a breath. This was it. The moment that would change everything. I do. They exchanged simple gold bands that Caleb had commissioned from the blacksmith. Foster pronounced them husband and wife. And when Caleb leaned in to kiss her, Kate felt something shift inside her chest. Hope. Real hope, for the first time since Andrew died. The small gathering cheered. Thomas ran up and hugged Caleb's legs. Emma demanded to be picked up. Sarah reached for Caleb with chubby hands, and he took her naturally, like he'd been doing it all her life. "Is Mr. Thornton our papa now?" Emma asked. Kate and Caleb exchanged glances. "Mr. Thornton is my husband," Kate explained carefully. "That makes him your stepfather. But your papa will always be your papa. Nobody can replace him." "Can we call him Papa Caleb?" Thomas asked. Caleb's eyes shone with tears. "If you want to, if it feels right." "It feels right," Thomas said decisively. "Papa Caleb." They had a simple meal at the parsonage, then rode back to the cabin as the sun set. Kate sat beside her new husband, watching the children play in the wagon bed, and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Peace. That night, after the children were asleep, Kate and Caleb stood on the porch, watching stars emerge. The same stars that had watched Andrew die. The same stars that had watched Kate fight to survive. The same stars that would watch them build this new life together. "Nervous?" Caleb asked. "A little. You... terrified." He smiled. "But the good kind of terrified, the kind that means you're about to start something important." Kate took his hand. "Thank you. For keeping your promise. For standing. For giving us a future. Thank you for letting me. For trusting me with your children. With your heart." Caleb pulled her close. "I know I'm not Andrew. I'll never be Andrew. But I'll be the best husband I know how to be. That's all I ask." They stood together under the Montana sky, two broken people who'd found each other in the darkness and decided to build something in the light. Inside the cabin, their children slept safe and warm. Outside, the valley was transforming, fed by the spring Andrew had died protecting. Life was moving forward, not forgetting the past, but honoring it by living well. Kate thought about that first night when the wolves circled and Caleb had ridden out of the darkness with a promise. "Not while I'm standing," he'd said. And he'd kept that promise. Through everything, through all of it, he'd stood. Now they'd stand together, building a life, raising children, making Andrew's sacrifice mean something by creating the future he'd dreamed of. The spring brought more than water to the valley. It brought renewal, second chances, the possibility that even after the worst loss, life could surprise you with unexpected gifts. Kate leaned into Caleb's warmth and watched the stars wheel overhead. Somewhere she believed Andrew was watching too. Proud of the woman she'd become. Grateful to the friend who'd kept his word. At peace, knowing his family would be loved and protected. "Ready to go inside?" Caleb asked softly. Kate looked at the cabin light glowing warm through the windows. Their home. Their family. Their future. "Yes," she said. "I'm ready." They walked inside together, closing the door on the cold night, stepping into the warmth they'd built together. And as Kate lay down beside her new husband that night, she realized something profound. She'd survived. More than that, she'd prevailed. Had taken the worst thing that could happen and transformed it into something new. Something good. Something worth living for. The wolves that had once circled would never return. Not because there were no more dangers in the world, but because Kate had learned what it meant to stand. To fight. To refuse to let tragedy have the final word. Andrew had given her strength through his love. Caleb had given her strength through his presence. But the real strength had come from within, from the determination to keep going, even when everything said to give up. That was Andrew's true legacy. Not just the spring that brought water to the valley, but the courage he'd shown in protecting it. Courage that lived on in Kate, in their children, in everyone who'd been inspired by his sacrifice to stand up for what was right. Outside, the Montana night was vast and cold and indifferent. But inside the cabin, warmth and love and family created a space where life could flourish, where children could grow, where two scarred people could heal together. Caleb's hand found Kate's in the darkness. She squeezed it, feeling his steady pulse, his solid presence, his unbreakable promise. Not while I'm standing. And Kate knew deep in her bones that they would stand together through whatever came next. Through drought and wolves, through hard winters and uncertain harvests, through joy and sorrow, and all the messy, complicated beauty of being alive. They would stand because that's what survivors do. That's what love demands. That's what Andrew's sacrifice had taught them. The cabin creaked and settled around them, solid walls, keeping out the darkness, holding in the light. And in that moment, Kate understood what home really meant. Not just four walls and a roof. Not just land and water and crops. But people. Family. The promise that no matter what comes, you face it together. Not while we're standing, Kate thought, drifting toward sleep with her husband's warmth beside her and her children safe in the next room. Not while we're standing.